We welcome you to the 2021 Lighting the Fire virtual conference, bringing together First Nations educators from across the country. This annual 3-day gathering showcases the best in First Nations education, always working in partnership with the schools and the nations we serve. The presentations you will experience at this one-of-a-kind event will reflect the conference theme of student well-being, balancing of the heart, mind, body, and spirit. We invite you to share your experience, knowledge, and understanding through the digital platforms over the next 3 days. Your voice matters. Together, we are strong.
Good morning, everybody. Tina Keeper and Indigenous Cast, and I'm so proud to be here today. I'm so honored to be your MC. This is the Manitoba First Nations Education Resource Center Lighting the Fire National Education Conference. And this year is a particularly special theme in that we are really focusing on the student well-being, and balancing the heart, the mind, the body, and the spirit. So we're going to have an amazing lineup of speakers. We're going to have an amazing amount of breakaway sessions with experts, and you're going to see some of the best keynote speakers and some of the best entertainment. So you have a very, very interesting few days ahead of you. And so we thank you for joining us. It is our honor and privilege to do this work for you and for the youth. I know that MFN ERC is a leader, and it is my great honor to be with you today. I'd like to now open the conference with our traditional protocols, and we will be asking Dene Sulain drum singer Victor Sizazi to open the Lighting the Fire conference.
Good morning. Don't say que cabine zinezon. Hello, Tene. Paso hole don con bekasuri tindik. It's in this is not. Sansan be at ya. He that anibizena tsushi. A tutin continental. Victor Tsazazi Ushi. Good morning. This introducing myself in my language here. My name is Victor Tsazazi. I come from Northland First Nation, and welcome to Lighting the Sacred Fire virtual conference. I just want to share a song here. I was asked to open in with the honor song for Dene Northland drumming. So share a song here. I hope everybody enjoy the conference and paso hole. Merci, Cho. On passe au relais.
So, Victor Sazaze, beautiful opening for our Lighting the Fire conference. Masicho. Victor Sazaze is from the Lac Rocher First Nation, Northlands. And once again, we thank you for that beautiful song for opening our conference. And I would now like to invite our prayer from Nellie Ann Cromarty. She is an elder, and it is a big part of the establishment and the maintenance of well-being for all of us that lies in the relationships that we are part of. And this traditional teaching is one we have to hold on for unification and for strength, relationship with the land, the creator, and ourselves and each other. And all have to be acknowledged and honored. As First Nation people, we do this not only through our actions, but also through prayer. And here today to open up this year's conference in a healthy way is a woman who served the field of education and community as a teacher since 1969. As a mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, her love for children was and still is a passion that drove her work. Please welcome her, my auntie, the Elder Nellie-Ann Cromarty from St. Teresa Point.
Good morning. Morning, everyone. It's a beautiful day today outside. I'm still in St. Teresa Point, and it's very warm outside at the moment. And we have a lot to be thankful for in our community, and I'm sure in your community as well. Even if we go through some bad times, it doesn't stay like that. We always have something positive to look at, which will help us continue our daily lives as we go on living. So for this morning, I want to wish you all a very happy experience with this new form of a conference. It is something new to us, elders. I never thought I'd be attending something like this in my life, where I can sit at home and talk to you guys. This was one of the things that the elders long time ago foresee in the future, talking to each other from each other's home. And they did that years ago with the traditional things that they used. But however, we must go on with the changes that these years have brought us. We have to accept the changes that have taken place throughout the years. And we have to be committed to carry whatever we have to go carry through to our students in the community and wherever we see children. We have to be committed and give our lives to that. Inasmuch here in our community, we've been having some difficulty due to COVID. We've lost some contact. The only way we contact people is through this media, medical, or whatever we need, business. It's the only way we can communicate with other people. And it's difficult for some of us. And I'm just learning into the process of how to do that. And I thank God that I'm still able to learn things. Like they say, you learn something new every day. Anyways, because of this COVID thing that we are battling, I would like to encourage all of you to be committed to fight a battle by looking at yourself and to see what you need. You need to establish a new form of life to go through this period of time. You need to do things. You need to change your way of doing things. And one of the ways to do that is to follow the protocols that have been set in place for you to protect yourself and your family and your community, to protect yourself from this disease, and that you yourself will go through it. And you have to be a role model. There are things that you have to do, and one of them is that the vaccinations. Please encourage each other to take that vaccination and also to vaccinate the children. I heard that they are going to start at 12 soon. Please see to it that and monitor them. The only way to go through this process is to monitor each other to see how it affects, and they can help them. We can help them go through this. That's my message for this morning. Unlike everything else in the education process, there are people out there who like to share their knowledge, their wisdom, and whatever they learned in life that can help our schools, our people, our young people to be a fulfilled, committed citizen of each community. And by now, I want to say a prayer with all of you to ask the Creator to bless us all in our endeavor to the next few days, and also that we will give thanks to everything that we have received. I'm going to say my prayer in my language, which is called Ansinimun. Ansinekaisikizetsuma Katanapiak. The language that is used in our area. Let us pray. Semanto asaminakapanafkako nongum kakizakak. Ewi pamutuang tanhunan awasme kwayaking kizamata ngapa. Asutskakana apanunjisak kaganawin naman gata. Kinanah kumuko wemenok magatakun siyang. We kamamaw kuchtuang. Chiki windamatiangapan. Antapukugawon siyang. Chiki windamatiangapan. Hanikinawant endotamak kapmatadunan. Kagiwichikuyak pemumputiak. Nego minakayos na nakaskamak. Upwen. Kakanakekun mensahigatik. Anakawis na kutuan. Kite kizak hiwewen. Kamen nentaman pemutuan. Nego mina kumamat nenjugan. Hanwahi natuan kumamat nenjugan. Ego na antikesigan na wendaman. Iyaw. Uwegagi minuguan. Chupamutuan mayaki. Kwange gunkin katone dati. Mi pagwahawe kapamhi kwakagan na wendaman kasemanto. Win kakinagegone. Eo natut an is mutwa. When I got to give kakwe sa taon naman. Awas me iwe katasakup matu. Ekiw natek kis matri. Kakinakekun kikiw na tamago. Kaya napatstak matutunan. Kaysa ka na wen makwa awasak. Kaysa ka na wen damak kakinakekun kakiminukwa. Ay hausak Tani kay napat siya kwa. Egam na gunan. Kan tao kika. Neppe mawat. Iki kutsumin ko. Kakinaw kwenon. Kaong gawan ni Kim. Juwi kinamawa kwa. Pichaga natakit. Kwenon kakimin ko. Kumaya. Ekwa. Kaong gawan ni Kim. Siya tamaga tamawa kwa. Kakinakitute mananak. Eka huma kakipin tamuat. Eka minagkachihamanak. Eka nanta kakichigat. Tuisa wenta agudwat. We eka minagadwit. Waniken taunta. Anakakiswitch tuat keu kwenon. Kawihan na pamutwa. Kawihan na kagwek na hamake. Eka minagtanda tamako. Awasme. Awasme. Juwik kentambak. Kwenon, kekunan, kantawan tambak. Juwe, ketan yun ng jisyapat. Mamat nenjagan, mas kawadiwan. Gum nakakanaw kwenon, kekunan. Kawich, biyak kesa pahpeso biyak. We, kapakuten mo ko, wisawenam sinam kakana. Wisawendan kakana kekun karutan. Which is na wayak chupumutuang, wayak chui chitiang, wekaisi piniang, chui pumutuang, kena mongta, awas. Ego minna we, ukwenak, azagaki, nakanakuang kukwenak, chiak, pansin. Agit na mawak, kiapit, chupumuichipiang. Chuich piang kiapits. Kwenon. Chui kani kehi kuang kue ke kunan kaki. Kaki pemih ketuat. Egam na kaki pisik na makas. Mamo kananah mam. We seman. Kawi. Wiak. Seki kawi pemtuak. Thank you.
Chimiquatch, Elder Nellie Ann Cromarty. It was beautiful. What a beautiful prayer and a beautiful song to open our conference. And the lighting the fire is going to be for today and the next 2 days. And that was our opening prayer and our opening drum song. And it was a most beautiful way to start this conference. I would like to now go to our opening remarks. And at this time, I will introduce the Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, Grand Chief Arlen Dumas.
All right. Tanse, tuhti magniwago nas komungi Tommy Tawipadik, kapipigis ko yan. Nido kitsuki gan Grand Chief Arlen Dumas of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. I come from Pakatawagan, Pakatawaганик, and bring greetings today on behalf of the Chiefs of the Assembly of Manitoba. Want to acknowledge Tina for the introduction and the good work you've done, and in your own right as being a trailblazer and a role model for many of us. Thank you. Also want to acknowledge all of our my fellow Grand Chiefs, my fellow elected leaders that are part of the conference, and any of our colleagues that are present or viewing the conference over the next couple of days. I want to specifically acknowledge our elder in that prayer and the messages that were offered to all of us. And they are solemn and they are respected, and they, on an individual level, they speak to me very strongly. So I give thanks for those messages and those prayers. And I just, for the record, I want to tell the elder that I got my first vaccination and I'm waiting for my second, and I appreciate her encouragement and that messaging for all of us to be mindful and protective of each other. It's good to see that she's speaking to us from St. Teresa Point. I want to also acknowledge that a couple of days ago, it was the acknowledgement of Elijah Harper. And with that said, I also want to acknowledge my colleague and newly elected Anishinaabe Grand Chief that will be joining. I look forward to working with him as well as we move forward. I also want to speak and acknowledge our Mifnirk elders, namely Florence Painter. I appreciate all the work you're doing and everything you've done. And to Elder Cromarty, I want to acknowledge you as well for being an educator for as long as you are. And you, not only did you make new roads for us, but you actually have seen the evolution of Indian control of education. I want to acknowledge the drum, good friend Victor, for singing that song. It was beautiful and a wonderful way to continue and start our ceremonies and our conferences. It's important to acknowledge all of that. So on behalf of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, I greet all of you and welcome all the educators and delegates to the Lighting the Fire Conference, now in its 21st year, I believe. I extend a special welcome to everybody from across the country to our shared Treaty 1 territory. You are part of an amazing lineup of keynotes, workshops, and entertainment scheduled over the next few days. I want to acknowledge and recognize Chief Clarence Easter and Chief Woodhouse of the Mifnirk board. I also want to acknowledge that Chief Easter is also the co-chair of the Summit of Treaty 5 Sovereign Nations. I also acknowledge my fellow Grand Chiefs. I want to acknowledge the Chiefs Committee on Education, who have provided support and direction on all aspects of education, including early learning, childcare transformation of the elementary school and secondary education program, and all education matters at all the tables at the highest level. Thank you to the chair of the AMCC COE, Chief Wayne Desjardins, for your important work on the committee, as well as your work on the Mifnirk board. I want to acknowledge and congratulate Charles Cochran, the new executive director for Mifnirk, but I also want to acknowledge the former executive director, Lauren Keeper, for his many years of dedication, not only to Mifnirk, but the overall theme of Indian control of Indian education. And I believe that many of the accomplishments that we've had is a culmination of all of that good work. And I want to acknowledge all of the chiefs who advocated. And, the tangible results is that we've been able to increase some of our funding resources to our member nations. And it was through our collective advocacy that we're able to achieve these things. I also want to acknowledge fierce education warriors who have recently retired from the center. They had fought for First Nations control of First Nations education for many decades, and to give expression to the education vision as outlined by the chiefs in Manitoba in the 1971 book Wabung, Our Tomorrows, and reaffirmed in the 2010 First Nations control of Indian First Nations education. I'm very proud of the center and the history of the First Nations education advocacy in our region. I always mention that it was the chiefs in Manitoba who first conceptualized Indian control of Indian education. And we were lucky and blessed and asked Verna Jane Kirkness to give it life, which she did very well, not only in Manitoba, but at a national level and in her teaching career at UBC as well. She actually trained many BC educators who went on to become BC chiefs based on the Manitoba Indian Brotherhood model of Indian control of Indian education. I'm also proud to highlight that Mifnirk is the most representative educational organization in the country, with the majority of staff coming from and reflecting our communities. And of course, we have the most language speakers on staff of any regional education organization. We don't always realize how special we are as First Nations educators in Manitoba. but I want to acknowledge them, and it's through those things that we're able to further advance what we're doing in our region in terms of language and culture. For the benefit of the younger educators in the audience, I would like to take an opportunity to mention that it's the 50th anniversary of Wabang. You know, on International Women's Day this past March, the AMC paid tribute to all the courageous women warriors, including Verna Jane Kirkness, who actually did the research and writing for each areas of Wabang. We used the great MIFNERC documentary, Our Tomorrows Today, which was researched and developed by MIFNERC Communications Department for International Women's Day. And again, for the younger educators out there, I encourage you to review this great documentary to gain more fulsome understanding of where we have come from and how far we have progressed in education. We have come a long way since Verna outlined the degree to which education has failed Indian peoples. She said that 10% of the graduation rate at the time was a shocking illustration of a monumental failure of the department's education policies. So we can now we can see the work of the CCOE and MIFNERC, and as evidenced by the establishment of our own school systems, our own processes, our own local control, we have come a long way. You are responsible for exercising jurisdiction and giving expression to the original MIB position of education as preparation for total living, and in the context, it extends far beyond the boundaries of what is conventionally considered schooling. I know that it's been a trying 2 years for the center, not only because of COVID, but because of the loss of some of our educator warriors over the last 2 years, including Gwen Merrick, Don Robertson, and Shirley Malcolm. We have honored them, but we need to take every opportunity to acknowledge their contributions. They have children and they have grandchildren carrying on their work within their respective organizations towards education. So I would like to acknowledge them again. These education trailblazers were responsible for operationalizing the mandate and the direction of the AMC Chiefs of Assembly to create an innovative, game-changing education entity that would improve the performance of First Nation schools and increase education outcomes for First Nation students. So the new generation of leaders at the center have some big shoes to fill, and I encourage the younger teachers and education leaders to work to fulfill the vision, to build on their legacy while fulfilling the direction of the Chiefs in Assembly. To give you a brief update on the education advocacy at the AMC Secretariat and the work of the AMC CCOE, we are close to finalizing a regional education agreement that would recognize the diversity of our schools and our First Nations with respect to the education funding jurisdiction and governance. We have to keep in mind that we have some of the largest schools in the country located on reserve in our First Nations here in Manitoba, and the federal government must respect this for our needs-based funding for not only elementary and secondary, but for post-secondary school as well. We are also implementing several motions from the CCOE to advance early learning and childcare and post-secondary work and First Nations regional management organizations for the high-cost special needs program. COVID has revealed the disparities in education for First Nations in spite of the great work done by the center to support our schools and remote learning, and in spite of extra support from the federal government. I'm worried that our students are falling even further behind in their schooling as a result of the pandemic. Some students have been on remote learning for extended periods of time, and as you know, this presents certain challenges for our education systems in terms of technology and connectivity. This is why I'm glad that the delegates will be considering the changes in the new school year and how we'll be moving forward once the pandemic is over. We are now in our 5th year of the First Nation school system, and it's good to see our systems continuing on and growing larger and stronger for the benefit of the students. This collective approach works for some, but like I said, the number of schools and diversity of education policy and visions means that we must be adaptable and support all First Nations in whatever their education visions happen to be. We have a lot of work to do to get the kids back into a regular schedule once the pandemic eases. But I believe that if we work together in the spirit of Wabang, we can rebuild back stronger in all areas to make up for lost ground, to ensure our children continue to benefit from the highest quality of programming and language and culture. I will conclude by expressing AMC's solidarity with the provincial teachers and helping all of our teachers in the region achieve better results and ensure that we're working towards the spirit and intent of Wabung. So I'll end my comments there. Kinanas kumit na wow. Akan midudi tinggi Tommy mamop yung misik kawin kanto tatua ako gawi chihtua voice ka muhtiwa. Thank you very much, Grand Chief Arlen Dumas.
Chief Dumas, that was wonderful remarks. I really appreciate all that you outlined there, because it is really notable that this conference is in its 21st year, and that the Manitoba region has been very successful in providing these second and third level services. Probably the largest Indigenous institution of its kind in the world. It's a really significant effort by our Manitoba chiefs. So, miigwech for that, and for also acknowledging the challenges of the pandemic, and yet how MF-NERC has been able to keep going. And so we are really seeing the adaptation by so many individuals and by organizations to keep providing those services to our children. I'd like to now introduce you to Grand Chief Garrison Settee, and he is the Grand Chief for the Manitoba Kiwetinawi Okimakanak. Good morning, Grand Chief Settee.
Tanse, tutte mak nitisanak, yung agumaganak, naspis na nas kumun Hispanik nisto that PVTU yan, hometis yan mutsika te kiskino matwin, kiskino magiwin, agamin kita temiskat na misiwe. I bring greetings from the MKO chiefs that I represent, and it is my honor to be here at the 2021 Lighting the Fire Conference. And it is a new way of meeting, it is a new way of convening, but I'm thankful that the team at MF-NERC has allowed us to join virtually, and it is a very important undertaking to be able to facilitate such a forum, and I'm thankful that I am here. And I am from the Pimicikamakri Nation, and I'm very honored to be in the presence of many professionals in the field of education. And I just want to commend all the people that are involved in this journey to improve the outcomes of First Nation education. And I truly believe that we can arrive at a place in time where we're up to par with the rest of Canadian society and the rest of Manitoba, because I believe that the talents and the gifts that we have as Indigenous teachers propel us forward to create a better future for our youth and also the students that we have in our care. So I'm very excited to be here, and I am thankful for the elder that opened with an invocation. A very powerful prayer. So thank you to the elder for doing that for us. And also, of course, Masi Chotu, Victor, for singing that song from his culture and his area. It's very good to hear the Dene drum that we haven't really had a chance to hear so much of them, but recently we've been hearing their songs. So thank you for that. And of course, I want to acknowledge our MC, Tina Turner, who has been part of the MF-NERC gatherings for a long time. So thank you for making us feel so welcome here. And also, I want to acknowledge my friend Charles Cochran for putting himself in a position where we can start making innovative changes in education. I trust in his capability. I trust that he will be able to take us further. When it comes to Indigenous education, we have many challenges, and technology being one of those challenges, because we know that during this pandemic, we had to adapt on how can we deliver quality education in First Nation communities when the challenges are insurmountable. But I think that with vision and commitment and dedication, we can change the status quo when it comes to the education of our youth. And I also want to acknowledge our teachers that are listening. I am a former teacher. I had taught for at least 18 years in our schools in our First Nation communities, and it is one of the most rewarding professions that I can think of, because of the capacity to be able to influence impressionable young minds, and it is a sacred responsibility. I've always said that it is a sacred responsibility to be able to work with our youth, because it's often said that they are the future. They are the future. They're the ones that will lead us. And whatever we deposit into their minds and their souls and in their spirits will ultimately shape and form their future. And we must do that in the best way that we know how, in a way that is innovative and also holistic. We must use the holistic approach when we're dealing with Indigenous education, because of our culture, our languages that have been assaulted. We need to reinvigorate our languages and our culture in our school systems, because I believe that a lot of the things that we are facing are because of cultural deprivation. And through assimilation and colonialism, our cultures have been damaged, but I think that we're on the verge of recovering our languages, recovering our culture, and our identity and our heritage needs to be a big part of the education system. So I want to commend the teachers that are here, because you are the warriors. You are on the front lines dealing with our students, and I commend you for being here in pursuit of professional development, new ideas and knowledge that will no doubt help you in educating our youth is very important. And because we are all caregivers as teachers, and it only takes one person to make a difference in the life of an individual. And I think about that. I was sharing a story with Charles at the beginning of this discourse we're having here before we went live. I had the privilege of teaching our young people. And then when you're in a classroom for 10 months with our youth, you get to know them, how they conduct themselves, their mannerisms, their character, their personality. And it's a very sensitive time for them. And we need to make sure that we build their self-esteem, that we enrich their lives, empower them with knowledge, because as you know, knowledge is power. And we need to continue to build on their knowledge base, so that when they go out into the world, that they will be equipped to be able to function, not only in our society, but also in the society that exists outside our First Nations, to be able to be successful, to be contributing members to society at large. And I'm very proud that I have taught so many students in my life, and I look back on the experiences that I have as very rewarding, but also thinking about the challenges that we face in First Nations, the lack of opportunities are lacking, and also different programs that they have in urban centers do not exist in First Nations. So we need to continue to lobby on their behalf, so that they will have everything at their disposal to be able to function and grow. And I'm thankful that I had that experience, but also I wanted to acknowledge the theme for this week's conference, student well-being. As a teacher, I was always cognizant of the fact that we have many children that come to school. They're hungry. They had a bad experience the night before. They had to wake up to a tragedy. They had to wake up with trauma. Those are the realities that our First Nations live in. And we must be sensitive on how we do our teaching, because I believe it's important that we think about the students' well-being, not only academically, not pushing curriculum only, but the mental, emotional well-being of our students should be also part of this process. And I remember times when I would talk to students, and I used to see a student kind of withdrawn, and I would go and see the student and say, is there anything that's happening in your life? we can talk. And there was a time when a young man said to me, I almost killed myself this weekend. I almost ended my life because of this and because of that. And I was able to reach out and present a different scenario that would give them hope and courage to face the hurt and the pain in their lives. And today, 24 years later, I see that young man in my First Nation, and he has 2 kids that are following him around everywhere. And those are the things that I'm very happy that I was part of a point in his life when he was struggling, that I was able to propel him forward. So those things are not lost on me. And I will always remember that. So this theme is very timely, especially during this pandemic. Our young people are suffering. Our young people are being challenged mentally and emotionally. And there's been suicide attempts in our First Nations because of being locked down. And we need to build a system where it incorporates everything that will help the students move forward. And that's just not academics, but we need to have mental wellness, holistic approaches to teaching, and connecting them with our culture, their identity, and also, most importantly, connecting them with the land, because we know the land heals, and we have to incorporate those things in our school systems, because I know mentally and emotionally, when you take anybody out on the land, it clears their mind, it lifts their spirit, and it's a purification process. So I'm thankful that you've chosen to use this theme, student well-being, because it's all about balance. When we're out of balance, and when our students are out of balance, they cannot learn. They cannot absorb the information and to be able to use it and process it. So I think it's all about balance. And we need to change the way we deliver education in First Nations, because a lot of the times what we're dealing with is cultural deprivation, and we need to enrich our students that they will be empowered and confident, and that their self-esteem will be elevated, because a lot of students come to school with low self-esteem. We must build on that. And as a teacher, that was my mission. I want to build the self-esteem of the students. I want them to be proud of who they are in spite of where they are. I want them to be proud as Cree people, that they have a heritage and a history, and that they need to continue to tap into their language. So I'm very proud of what I see happening in our schools today. They're invigorating our cultural teachings in the school and bringing elders into the school. And as a teacher, I reached out to elders, and one elder that I took out for supper, and I drove him around the community, and he said to me, "What you're doing is good, but for us, that's not how we learned. That's not how we received our education. We received our education out on the land. Our language was learned on the land. Our ceremonies were learned on the land. Our teachings were learned on the land. That is what is missing." And it really opened my eyes, and changed my perspective on how I can deliver education to our students. So it's a very important gathering, and the heart, mind, and body and spirit of our youth is at stake, and we must rise up to the challenge. We must face our challenges. We must overcome the obstacles, and we must propel our students forward to be strong, to be courageous, not to succumb to depression, not to succumb to suicidal ideation, but be proud warriors, and to propel them forward so they can make changes for us in the future. And I believe in the future that we're going to have a generation that will turn things around for us, as those of us that are getting a little bit older. I think that we're going to see a promising generation ahead of us, and it is up to us to ensure that we pave the way and create that path for them to continue to excel and to strive to learn. And I'm a believer in lifelong learning. I'm learning every day. As a former teacher, I continue to educate myself to learn as much as I can. So I encourage you, teachers, absorb everything, take everything in, and take it home, and inspire our youth, because they need it. So I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful to be part of this discussion, and I commend MF NERD for holding such a very important conference when it comes to student well-being. balancing of the heart and mind, body and spirit. This is critical. This is important, especially now. So thank you for using this as your theme, because I know it'll make a difference in our teachers and ultimately our youth. Now, thank you for allowing me to be part of this conference.
Hey, Agasani Chief, well, Grand Chief Garrison Sethi. And I just want to share with everybody that's listening is that I had the great privilege to join Garrison's classroom at one point when he was teaching. I remember you were wearing a beret and you were teaching, and it was about your students were presenting on the Indian Act and the treaties. I believe it was a grade 10 or 11 class, maybe grade 12. And it was just, it was honestly mind-blowing for me to see that, you know, it took me until I got into university to be taught that. You know, that wasn't part of the curriculum you know, when I was in high school. And and your students were so well versed in that study and what their history was, what the colonizing was, and what their rights were out of that, you know, like who they were inherently. And really, it was a memorable moment. I will never forget it. I just thought that is really how we should be teaching our children. And I'd like to also acknowledge the part you said about the land, and that's where the teachings are. My late mother is from Muskrat Dam First Nation in the Treaty 9 territory. And I'll say, you know, when we've grown up with from traveling cultures, fish camp cultures, you know, that's where the hard work and the discipline comes from, you know, like that work ethic, and, you know, and you learn how to get things done, and everybody has a role and everybody has to do it. And that's just part of life. It doesn't get distorted with this, you know, this idea of punishment or, you know, in sort of different institutions. I really believe that, you know, understanding your role too, like how important each of us is and doing our work right. So all of those things are so important. And that respect for the land and the food and each other. Oh, just thank you so much for reminding me of that. It's just, I always believe that those teachings, once we have those teachings, we can do whatever we want. We can go wherever we want. And you're right, like, and if we know our history and we know who we are, and nobody can take that away from us wherever we go. That is the well-being, right? So thank you so much for just bringing those comments and your history and your experience to this opening session of the conference. I'd now like to introduce our next speaker in the opening comments, and this is Chief Dennis Meaches from Long Plain First Nation, and he is the Treaty 1 spokesperson. Welcome.
Good morning, Tina. How are you?
Very good.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much. Bonjour, tout le monde. Alex and Guawe Ginitijikas. Benasi to them. Kanish Kutiak doing Ginakunim Kanagina away Kanzigagi Agi Lakamat Shgoway Quagagi Namiat Kishamanadu. It's on behalf of the Treaty 1 Nation, the chiefs, and all of our citizens. I bring greetings. We're very proud to be represented here today with all our Indigenous family. MF NERC has done a tremendous job throughout the years and continue to do great work, laying a strong education foundation for all of our people. I just wanted to comment on, I know it's quite different, the world we live in today, and it's been a little over a year now that we've been walking through this pandemic, and I'm fairly hopeful that things will get better in the next months coming ahead, but we've experienced some unique challenges in education in our First Nation communities dealing with this pandemic, and many children unable to attend classes, in-house classes, but there's different ways that we've been able to work to deliver education, quality education. Treaty 1 Nation, Also, I just wanted to acknowledge Yelko College. They've secured, a lot of, I think, programming for the coming year. It is Yelko University and College. It's now known as Yelko University and College, and a big shout out to the staff over there. I like to echo the comments that were made regarding the curriculum and the work that needs to be done in that particular area. For sure, I think there's a lot of groundbreaking work happening within our Indigenous communities. The indigenization of our curriculum through land-based activities, language repatriation, just understanding who we are as Anishinaabe, Dakota people, Cree people, Dene people. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in that, because I know we've experienced a lot of challenges going through the public education system and dealing with a lot of different situations individually and as communities with the education system. But I again acknowledge Charles Cochran, our CEO here at MF-NERC, and thank him for all, and his staff for all the great work that they're doing. The theme of today's conference over the next 3 days, you're going to be hearing a lot of great speakers on education. The theme is balancing heart, mind, body, and spirit. That's so important to realign your body, mind, spirit, and to move forward in a good way. I'm very fortunate. I mean, with Long Plain and the people of Long Plain, being in office, being a public servant for going on 26 years here. So, and I'm very fortunate also too and blessed. I have beautiful children and grandchildren, and majority. Well, I have 9 children, and 5 of my daughters will be educators, getting their teaching certification. I think a few of them have it already. One will, I think, go to convocation this spring. And I have 2 other daughters that are working towards getting their degrees. So I'm very blessed with that, and I'm very thankful that they're grounded in their cultural identity, and I think we have a lot of hope and promise for the future with our young people that are coming up throughout Indigenous country. As you all know, for what was formerly known as Cap Young Barracks, we have a new name, and it's Nawe Otana, which means center of the heart, center of things. And we're very blessed to have Knowledge Keeper Dave Crishane gift that to the Treaty 1 Nation. And I view the Nawe Otana as a great opportunity for all of our people, throughout the country, Turtle Island, and the opportunity to create something dynamic, something that will really ingrain ourselves within our homelands here in Treaty 1. So, for example, a Center of Excellence, Education Excellence, and I'm looking forward to working with MF-NERC on that in the coming years. And just being able to cement, Indigenous education and redesigning curriculum. I think that's so important, and that's been missing, as some of the speakers have noted. So we'll move forward with that, and and we welcome all partnerships, Indigenous, other Treaty First Nation groups, PTOs to work with the Treaty 1 Nation government. And in the case of Long Plain, we have a great partnership with Dakota Plains School. I think about 50 of our children go to school at Dakota Plains, and part of the challenge is education infrastructure. Adding additional classroom space and curriculum space for our children. So we're hoping that will go well for us. We do have Kishkimako Reserve in the city of Portage too, so we have a relationship with the Portage School Division. But the population, Indigenous population, is booming, and we've walked through many different challenges. Whether it's the Spanish flu of 1918 to 100 years later, this particular pandemic that we're walking through. And we always have to look back to our grandparents, our great grandparents. Our grandparents were quite young as they walked through that Spanish flu. Then we have to contend with different challenges related to government policies, federal and provincial government policies that really had a damaging effect on who we are as Indigenous people. And we're still fighting those battles today. But we must continue on and protect our treaty, our sovereignty as Indigenous people, and implement our treaty rights. And so there's a lot of work to do, and we would be unable to achieve that if we don't have, a solid understanding and education of who we are. So, but I believe MF-NERC has done, very, very good job throughout the years, and I want to commend them for the great work they've been doing. Lighting the Fire is an annual conference. It's, I think, going on close to 20 years now. So big acknowledgements and big congratulations to you for all the great work that you've done. That's really about it for me. I just want to, again, on behalf of the Treaty One Nation, there's a lot of, I think, great things happening out there, but there's still a lot of challenges that we face, and we need to, in the spirit of Tecumseh, come together and just keep pushing hard for a better standard of living, higher education standards, and repatriation of culture, repatriation of our land, economic reconciliation, setting the agenda for the next generation of leadership that's coming through the ranks, and because of the great education that they've been afforded and the great gift that we've been receiving from our knowledge keepers on, land-based curriculums and just the passing down of traditional knowledge to all of our people. So I wanted to close with that. I want to wish you all well. I think we have a very, very this coming year, 2021, I think it should be much better. I mean, for Treaty One Nation, we are celebrating our 150th anniversary on August the 3rd. So keep an eye out for those events that come that when the time comes, and we look forward to participation of all of our people. Have a beautiful day and stay well.
Kitchimigwech, Chief Dennis Meaches. Like to thank you and acknowledge you for all the work that you've done on this issue, and in terms of what you're talking about, the significant work that Treaty One territory has done in advancing their claims, their reclamation, their repatriation of land, and how significant that will be for the region. And I'd like to acknowledge as well that I am on the Treaty One territory at this time, so I acknowledge that. And I know that a lot of the work of MFNERC is done. Their offices are in the Treaty One territory, and this has been very significant in terms of, as you're saying, the ability to organize, create these institutions, have our institutions on our own lands. And I believe like all of that is part of that economic reclamation that you're talking about, and for sure education and the well-being of our education systems for First Nations is part of that, is towards the repatriation of everything for Indigenous peoples and the economic reclamation, because I always believe we should be the healthiest, best, we should be the healthiest people on this land. Our well-being should be, as it was for all time, extremely healthy and extremely fine lives. I always think that, when my great-grandfather, who actually went to school in the South, was an Olympic runner in 1912. And at those Olympics, there was 5 First Nations people from North America that were at those Olympics, including Jim Thorpe, who won a gold medal. So, it speaks to the health and well-being that our people had extremely fine lives. And I believe that, you know, as you're saying, that the work that our leadership had done, including yourself, the Treaty One territory, you know, in terms of Kapiong Barracks, who even thought that that would happen? And you fought, right? The Treaty One chiefs fought and did something that nobody thought was possible in terms of the federal government. So we are very cognizant of that as, you know, First Nation citizens in Manitoba, and very proud of the leadership of the Treaty One chiefs.
Big watch, Tina. Thank you. Yeah, it's so important. There's so much work to do, and I really think that we'll make some major gains in the future with everything that's going on. But again, we still have to be on guard. We still have to, of course, our first priority is to navigate ourselves through this pandemic. And I just wanted to offer also, you know, support to and prayers to our communities that are affected by the fires up north. And I know many First Nation communities are still struggling with this pandemic and the COVID-19 variants. So I'm wishing everybody well. I'm hoping that, you know, we can get through this safely. And I'm just, you know, very concerned by those things. But at the same time, you know, we have to really reflect on, it's a time of great reflection, really. When you think about it, it's a time of great reflection, and it's opened our eyes to a lot of different things. And even the way we conduct business today, I mean, a lot of people were forced to actually, you know, understand how information and technology works and how you get best able to use that, right? So I know sometimes social media can be a very dangerous place for people too. So, so there's a lot of work to do, a lot of work to, you know, to continue just to safeguard ourselves and our lands, our economies, you know, our citizens, which I think we're moving in the right direction as we should be. And I think we have a great understanding of, you know, our history of who we are. And, you know, there's great guideposts out there, such as Wellbeing, Our Tomorrows, you know, and there's a lot of great knowledge keepers out there that are giving us the best advice through their years of wisdom. And yeah, we're moving in, I think, in the right direction, but there still will be, we will still be facing gatekeepers, obstacles, and different challenges. But as Charles said, like, we've been through this so many times and we've gotten through it, and we'll get through this also too. So thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity to provide opening comments on behalf of the Treaty One Nation. And I hope you all stay well and stay safe, and we'll talk soon. Thank you. Miigwech.
Miigwech. That was Chief Dennis Meaches. I'd like to now introduce you to our next speaker for the opening remarks. And this is the Assembly of First Nations Regional Vice Chief for Manitoba, Vice Chief Kevin Hart. He is a citizen of Nisquezik Cree Nation. Hello, Chief.
Good morning, Tina. How are you? Tanse and Tutemak. Ego Patako say on this Castle Nasquan Tutem. I greet you all this morning from the Saugeen First Nation in Treaty One territory. My name is Regional Chief Kevin Hart with the Assembly of First Nation. I first off want to thank our brother Victor for the beautiful song that he offered up and sharing those beautiful Dene songs that come from the northern part here in Treaty 5 territory in Manitoba, northern Manitoba, as well as Elder Cromarty for her beautiful words and her beautiful prayer that she offered up, you know, with that, with the wisdom behind it. Of course, we're here for the 2021 Lighting the Fire conference. I want to first off thank Charles Cochrane, his board. I want to thank the past educators, our past leaders, as well as the vision that was achieved many years ago. And we see today what we've been able to achieve. You know, I want to acknowledge my my fellow colleagues, the Grand Chiefs from the respected organizations, the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, Grand Chief Arlen Dumas, the Manitoba Kiwi-Tinoi Okimaganak, Grand Chief Garrison Sati, and of course our Southern Chiefs organization, Grand Chief Jerry Daniels. You know, there's been great leadership here in Manitoba for many decades that always has fought hard for the rights and the sovereignty of Manitoba First Nations and their citizens. I remember 30 years ago the demonstrations that happened outside of 275 Portage, where now you spin forward 30 years, you know, it's now home to where the Assembly of Manitoba's Chiefs are, as well as the Manitoba Kiwi-Tinoi Okimakanak. But at one time, that was the building that housed, which was INAC. And then I know that many people fought hard, leadership, young people, old people, elders, knowledge keepers and such, that fought so hard to ensure to protect that right to education. And, you know, a long way has come forward when we look at 2021. They've always fought on that 2% cap, for example. And now we look at all the new investments that have been achieved, you know, through our various committees that we have, both at the AMC level as well as at the AFN level where I am. And, you know, that gives me thanks to people and great leaders like Chief Desjarlais from Ebb and Flow, who has been our representative there at that national table to ensure that Manitoba gets, you know, the maximum benefits as well as the maximum investments that are coming to Manitoba. And we've seen great investments, you know, for some of the national portfolios that I hold at the Assembly under Social Development, for example. Early learning and childcare. A couple years ago, we seen an investment of over $1 billion over 10 years. At that time, only 65% of the First Nations in Manitoba even had funding for early learning and childcare. And when that new investment came through, all First Nations in Manitoba were eligible for that new funding. And that goes through great leadership and the great work. Goes through great work of MF, NERC, as well as, you know, I want to hold up people like Sheila Murdoch, who's very instrumental in that early learning and childcare work that was done as the technician from Manitoba, as well as Chief Vera from Poplar River, who was our representative at that table. So it showed the great work that our women leadership were able to achieve, given me that direction at the national table, working with chiefs from across the country as well as technicians across the country. This year in budget 2021, we've seen a further investment in early learning and childcare for $2.5 billion. And this is going to further help us, especially when we talk about childcare right now. Childcare is so important for us in First Nations. For example, both people in the household can't work because one has to stay home and look after his children. We all know the high cost of living in our First Nations, for example. You know, food insecurity is something that's huge. We see the high rates of diabetes and such in our communities. We see the states of emergencies that have occurred in the last year during the pandemic. And, you know, we look at our people out there, the frontline workers, you know, our teachers, our educators and such. They're going above and beyond the service of just being teachers and educators right now. We see them helping deliver food hampers in our First Nations, helping package hundreds of food hampers for our families. We see them getting homework packages and delivering them to the households during a pandemic. We see in some cases where e-learning is online, and we have our kids at home learning online from their teachers as well. And so, our teachers are going above and beyond when it comes to being vigilant, and also all of us thinking outside the box right now when it comes to the importance of, protecting our most precious gifts, our children, our knowledge keepers, our women right now. I can't say enough for for our educators, our knowledge keepers, and our elders, for the ones that talk about everything and talk about education, because we have to remember our educators right now. You're shaping the minds of tomorrow, and while we're not forgetting, the teachings of the past. And I know that my knowledge keepers and elders saying that yes, we're not forgetting our teachings of the past, but we have to remember that they're very much living today. They're very much living in our languages. They're very much living in our songs. They're very much living in, the teachings that we get land-based on the land from our aunties and our uncles, and our grandfathers and grandmothers. That is important education. I've always said that yes, we have to go out and get that education, go to university or college and get that formal education, but we always have to remember to keep that balance, because we're talking about balance here, and the very theme that we're talking about here is balance, of course, of the mind, the body, and the spirit. And we're always told of that balance. Well, when we talk about the balance of education, we also have to remember all that land-based education, the surviving, how in some of the comments they talked about going out on the land, being in those fish camps. I see great work being done in terms of Jordan's principal programming, where they're doing a lot of land-based teaching now, and taking our children back on the land, showing them where the medicines are, where our people gather when they used to do ceremony out on the land and the water, and getting those very important spiritual connections to our children, to the very land and water that we're from as the first people of these lands. And so with that, I just want to end it off by congratulating and always acknowledging the past. We have to acknowledge people like Lauren Keeper. I want to acknowledge people like Shirley, and other educators and champions for education for many years. Their work is showing today on what all of us have been able to achieve. This is what happens when leadership, educators, and all of us work together. This is what we can achieve. And I lift you all up. I send my love and prayers to you all at this time during a pandemic. It is very hard, yes. My love and prayers go out to those that have been directly affected at losing loved ones during this pandemic. I know our elders have told us that, we've survived past pandemics, we've survived genocides. We're still here. We still have languages, we still have songs and ceremony. We still have that very important connection to the land and the water and everything that's around us. And that's how I think that when we talk about this theme today, about creating that balance between the mind, the body, and the spirit, that we incorporate that when we talk about education, and that we talk about, lifting up all of those who are educators out there each and every day, whether you're mom or dad, auntie or uncle. We all have a very key role in educating the minds of the future. So it's going to take all of us together collectively I want to lift you all up at this time for all the hard work that you've done in the last year. Ensure to practice social distancing. Ensure to wear your face masks and always have hand sanitizer when you go out for essentials. Wear some gloves. We're almost there. Book your appointment to get your vaccination. Well, pretty soon, let's pray that we have our kids back in the classrooms this fall, and hopefully in the near future, everything gets back to normal, and that at the next Lighting the Fire conference, we're all together, shoulder to shoulder, sharing and laughing like we did not so long ago. Egosani, Miigwech, thank you. Take care, everyone.
Agosani, Vice Chief Hart, thank you so much for sharing all that you did. Again, all the work that is collective and is so important. Everybody from our political leaders, to our educators, to our grandmothers, to people working principal, all of the people that make this happen and have created a strong education system for First Nations children. And I'd like to also acknowledge you and other leaders have shared about the memorial and the tribute you pay to our educators who we've lost and who we love. Don Robertson, Elder Don Robertson, and Gwen Merrick, and Shirley Malcolm. And so thank you for that. And we wish you a safe journey as well as you continue on in your work. And Egosani.
Thank you, Tina. You be safe. Take care. Take care, everybody.
I would now like to let you know that the opening and welcoming remarks are over, and it was really, really, really joyous and inspirational hour that we had with our opening remarks from our opening drum song from Victor Tsazazi and Nellian Cromarty, our elder, who did a beautiful prayer for us. And I'd like to thank our leaders for sharing so much with us today, because we're not in that place where we can like have our little side chats, or we can have like as Vice Chief said, we could take somebody else's bannock or whatever, that sort of mingling and visits. And so that was just wonderful to have that time with our leadership. And now I want to introduce you to the Executive Director of the Manitoba First Nations Education Resource Center. He is from Ebb and Flow First Nation, and he has been the new Executive Director since 2020, and this is Charles Cochran.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you very much. Wow, it's certainly a tough act to follow with all these awesome speakers and the leadership and their great messages. So it's certainly a pleasure to hear the words coming from our leaders. I do want to say good morning to everyone. Good morning to the elders, educators, teachers, parents, leaders, and certainly all our audience that are here today. And I do want to say I'd like to thank Elder Nellian Cromarty for her opening prayer. I say Gichimiigwech, as well as Gichimiigwech to Victor Tsazazi for the opening song. I also want to say thank you to our Master of Ceremonies, our MC, Tina Keeper. I was a little worried that I didn't say Tina Turner. So again, welcome and thanks everybody. I do want to say, certainly looking at all the great people that are on here today, and like certainly getting reports that there's basically over 900 participants in this gathering today. So I do want to start by acknowledging that we are on Treaty 1 territory, and we are proud to be carrying out this conference on this great land and on this great Treaty 1 territory. So I do want to acknowledge that, and certainly very happy and proud that we were able to carry out this huge conference. It's been a conference that's been well over 20. It's about 20 years now. So I will also, though, send regrets on behalf of our chairperson, Chief Clarence Easter from Chemawawan. He's sending his regrets due to a passing earlier this morning in his community. So our thoughts go out to Chief Easter and his community. I'll provide a brief message, but I think for those that know me, my brief messages sometimes get a little long-winded, but I'll try keep it to a minimum. My thoughts do go out to the communities, certainly experiencing these tough times due to the different circumstances, whether it's COVID, whether it's suicide, fires, etc. Certainly my heart goes out to Shamattawa. My heart goes out to the communities that are experiencing fires, and my heart goes out to those communities that have been affected by COVID, and now in my community of Ebb and Flow, it has a breakout, and again, our heart goes out to those communities experiencing those tough times. I do want to welcome our First Nations and non-First Nation people throughout our provinces. We have many, many beautiful First Nation communities, many beautiful people throughout our province. I also want to welcome the guests from outside our province. I will say on behalf of our MFNERC board, Chief Clarence Easter, Chief Wayne Desjarlais, Chief Leroy Constant, Chief Garnet Woodhouse, and Education Director Donovan Mann, and the staff of MFNERC, I say welcome, very welcome to this event. And I certainly also want to acknowledge those trailblazers that have passed on, of which the Grand Chief references people like the late Gwen Merrick, my cousin Shirley Malcolm Fontaine, Sharon Fiddler, John Peter Day, Don Robertson, and others. Big part of the getting the MFNERC started well over 20 years ago. I also do want to acknowledge Mr. Lawrence C. Keeper, our past executive director. I certainly want to indicate that he's provided me the mentorship to where I am today. So I really say Gachimi-wech, Lauren, for all the support you've provided me and still provide me support. And so I appreciate that, Gachimi-wech. Thank you. I haven't introduced myself. My name is Charles Cochran. Kapmashing Mikised Nishnikas, Chiging China and Anjanishna Bemon. Kaka quick Jung Donji to go Chigit Miss Sogungichina and then Gichina and Anishna Bay and the Wanishna Bemon. My name is Charles Cochran. My Anishinaabe name is Flying Bald Eagle, and I'm from the Ebb and Flow First Nation, and very proud, a proud Ojibwe speaker. Again, proud as a First Nation within our province. I am the executive director of the Manitoba First Nation Education Resource Center, and I came on in June of last year, so pretty well close to a year since I've been executive director, and very proud of our organization. I'm very proud to be the executive director, and again, I don't do it alone, I'll say that. I certainly have a great deal of support from people like certainly Virginia Arthurson, Associate Executive Director, a big support to the work that we carry out on a daily basis. Our Director of Finance, George Morasti, our HR Director, Human Resource Director, Dolores Daniels, Director of Operations, Howard Burston, and others. There's certainly a great team that we have. I've been with the organization now about 13 years, and previous to that, I was an education director in both my First Nation community, and prior to that, also at West Region Tribal Council as an education director. So I do like to think that I do bring a great deal of experience in terms of First Nation education, and again, very proud of that. And certainly do also want to acknowledge our support team within the organization. Shalene Daniels provides a lot of support to my work. So I, again, appreciate those. I do want to say this past year certainly has been challenging for everyone, certainly not only for us as individuals, as First Nation people, we are affected all together. Certainly our nationhood, our communities, our families, and certainly we have our elders and children in mind first and foremost throughout this pandemic. I've been very fortunate to provide opening prayers in various circles, and I certainly always acknowledge the health and safety is the biggest is paramount in everything during this pandemic, and for us as an organization, we take a great deal of making sure we continue to support communities through this tough times, in terms of the health and safety of the children, of the community, and of course our staff. So that being said, is we do take it very seriously in terms of making sure that if we can get through this, and we will. I always say, as Anishinaabe people, we've been here for a long time and have gone through tough times. Our forefathers and four grandmothers and that have experienced many difficulties and challenges throughout the course of our First Nation Anishinaabe history, and this is one example of it today. And I'll say it: we are resilient people, and we certainly will get through this. And again, with let's keep the health and safety in mind with everything we do. Again, I do offer my heartfelt sympathies for those families that have experienced losses and the grief and impacts, the despair impacts us also. Though we cannot gather together as we normally do, generally we do have about 1,000 people that would normally come into our in-person conferences. However, this virtual platform and format gives us an opportunity to still be together and learn together, and for leadership to reassure that unity is the medicine, that we are strong, we are resilient, and again, we are proud. The conference, the Lighting the Fire conference theme and has been referenced as student well-being, balancing the heart, the mind, the body, and spirit. And certainly it reflects the need for the spiritual, physical, emotional, intellectual being of our school-age children and youth. They're the ones we have lost the most. I will say that certainly, again, looking at they're the reason why we live. They're the reason why we exist. They're the reason why we work. Is for those children in our communities. It's immeasurable, and for all of us as leaders and educators, parents, grandparents, it is our responsibility to ensure feelings of security, happiness, and more importantly, that they are loved. And that's who we are as Anishinaabe people. We have an enormous undertaking ahead. All of us to get our schools and classrooms back on track. And certainly as more and more of us get vaccinated, and we're hearing that from our leaders, we're certainly hoping, and we do see a light at the end of the tunnel, that the pandemic will come closer to an end, and certainly hoping by September, and some First Nations may choose to open their schools. They still may choose to continue remote learning. But I just want to provide assurance to the First Nations, provide assurance to the schools that we will be there to provide support in terms of whatever your needs will be. So certainly as we're entering this third wave of the pandemic, we know there are more questions than answers. But again, we will get through this. In terms of the conference itself, we will focus on 3 streams. We'll focus on language and culture. We'll focus on recovery learning, and we will focus on student wellness. And certainly when we look at these are areas that we are considered coming for the new school year, and certainly provide support to those schools in those areas. On Thursday morning, and tomorrow, our live stream will be hosting a recovery learning panel. So to make sure, tune in, as there will be a question and answer period on recovery learning. We are well aware that certainly with this past year of the challenges there have been, there's certainly going to be some challenges or needs to address recovery learning. So that's an item that's going to be on the as part of our live stream. I am pretty close to finish. Certainly, when we look at our language and culture, our direction from our elders and First Nation leadership basically gave us looking at how we are changing our service delivery. We are providing more of a focus on based on our foundations of language and culture, based on our foundations of our values and beliefs. So again, looking in terms of the way of new ways of doing business, but obviously COVID has also had an impact in terms of that. But it's also, and I've said this on a number of occasions in various circles, is as much as really nothing positive has come out of COVID, one thing it did do is it did accelerate our I guess new way of doing business, and it's using technology. And this virtual conference is a prime example of that, using technology to reach out to communities. We're still well aware that there is accessibility issues for things like internet access, high speed, and as Grand Chief Garrison Sete indicated, we had a little discussion earlier before we actually were able to get on, and one of the initiatives that we're actually very closely involved in through work internally is looking at the Starlink strategy and looking at high-speed satellite internet access, and certainly that is so well within our reach. And I'm not even talking months; I'm talking weeks. So we are looking at that as a strategy moving forward very quickly. And we know there are some communities, so many communities, that are challenged for internet access. And again, we are looking at ways to address that. So hopefully within the next few weeks, we'll have some positive, we have some solutions, certainly solutions in mind. So again, we will certainly be communicating that to our First Nations. So I do want to thank all the departments within our organization, again, in carrying out this new way. It's certainly been, again, changes that need to happen. Certainly with this platform, we have a digital learning environment that helps supports this virtual conference. So I thank the team on that. I thank the team and certainly the language and culture in terms of the change and the transformation we've had internally to look at providing service based on our foundations of language and culture. And certainly changes in inclusive education, formerly called special education, but in terms of today's context, inclusive education is the reference being used, and certainly looking at the services provided through there, whether it's the educational services in inclusive education, we have clinical services, training initiatives. So again, I thank those departments as well as the ongoing work we continue to work with together with Dr. Nora Murdoch on the Manitoba First Nation school system. So that being said, we certainly looking forward to enjoying the next 3 days. I do also want to acknowledge the graduates that have come out of training initiatives. Just recently, when we look at the pandemic, and certainly some of the impacts or effects that will come out of the pandemic, is the need for psychological services, as an example. This past year, we've had a number of young First Nation students in school psychology degree programs through the University of Calgary, and we will be graduating 9 First Nation school psychologists in this next month, and with the plan to start all of them in September. So looking at, again, providing that support in school psychology. So there's a lot of activity happening within the organization. As much as things have closed, our schools have closed to a great extent, we haven't stopped. We still are looking at continuing to try and to make a better a system that was very good, even better. So I will say again, please stay in touch with the conference. Certainly the keynote speakers, the entertainment, the workshops, and certainly we'll see everybody on Friday at 1 for the closing ceremony. So I do want to say thank you, Rachel and Daniel and the DLE team for this bringing this conference in this format. Great work. And certainly I do want to say on a final note, I will say I have received both my vaccinations. So I encourage all to get your vaccinations. Certainly it has provided me a bit of relief, but certainly we can't be complacent. We need everybody to be safe, everyone. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a great lighting the fire. Chimiwech to everybody, and stay safe. Thank you very much, Tina. Yeah.
Excellent. Kichimiwech. Our Executive Director, Charles Cochran from the Manitoba First Nations Education Resource Center. Thank you so much for all of your insights and all the information you gave us, and very, very inspiring news about the graduates and infrastructure. So wonderful. And as Charles said, we do have a really incredible agenda. And so I'm just going to move right on to my introduction of our keynote speaker today. And it is my privilege to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Joshua Whitehead. And he uses the pronouns he, him, and is a Two-Spirit, Oji, Nihiao, member of Peguis First Nation in the Treaty 1 territory. And he is an award-winning author, activist, and scholar. He is currently a PhD candidate, lecturer, and a Kalam scholar at the University of Calgary, where he studies Indigenous literatures and cultures with a focus on gender and sexuality. His dissertation, tentatively titled Feral Fatalisms, is a hybrid narrative of theory, essay, and nonfiction that interrogates the role of plurality inherent within Indigenous ways of being, with a strong focus on Nihiaoian. Whitehead is an author of Full Metal Indigiqueer. It was published by Talon Books in 2017, which was shortlisted for an inaugural Indigenous Voices Award and the Stephen G. Stephenson Award for Poetry. He is also the author of the renowned book, Johnny. It was published by Arsenal Pulp Press in 2018, and it was longlisted for the Giller Prize, shortlisted for an Indigenous Voices Award, the Governor General's Literary Award, the Amazon Canada First Novel Award, and the Carol Shields Winnipeg Book Award, and won the Lambda Literary Award for Gay Fiction, the Georges Bonnet Award for Fiction, and winner of CBC's Canada Reads 2021. Whitehead is currently working on a third manuscript titled Making Love with the Land, to be published with Knopf Canada, which explores the intersections of indigeneity, queerness, and most prominently, mental health through a Nihao lens. Currently, Whitehead is premiering his newly edited anthology, Love After the End, an anthology of Two-Spirit and Indigiqueer speculative fiction. Let's welcome the brilliant, award-winning novelist, storyteller, Joshua Whitehead.
Thank you so much. Tansei, Tanchi, Bojo, Nedotamak. Hi, my friends. I'm so happy to be back, at least virtually, in Manitoba, Treaty 1. I'm currently still here in Treaty 7, Mohkinstsis, Blackfoot Confederacy, Calgary. So it's been a while since I've been back, so I'm sending all my love to Treaty 1. Thank you for having me with MFN ERC, which is actually one of the very first places that ever published my work. So way back when, I'm aging myself now, but yeah, I hold MFN ERC as a resource and as an organization so near and dear to my heart. So I'm very happy and humbled to be here with everyone today. Thank you to all the organizers, to Joy, to Rachel, and to all of the Grand Chiefs for introducing. It's just a pleasure. So I thought today I would talk about just a little bit about mental health. So I was introduced this new book that I'm working on, which is nearly finished. Making Love with the Land is set primarily mostly in Manitoba. So you'll recognize things like the North Sea Snake Dens, Broken Head, Peguis First Nation, Winnipeg, Selkirk, Manitoba. But it's also set here in Alberta too, where I've been for the last 5 years. And then details things like mental health. And I guess just to preface this, I used to work for the Friendship Centers. I worked in Selkirk, Manitoba, which is also one of my small hometowns that I grew up in primarily, alongside Peguis. And I worked for this Friendship Center, Selkirk Friendship Center, and I did two things throughout the year. One being I ran a summer day camp for kids, which was subsidized primarily for low income and mostly Indigenous kids. And then throughout the rest of the year, I ran a after school program where we'd have kids who could come in, mostly teenagers, young adolescents at this time, all the way through to about 20, who could come in, and we had computers. We helped them with resumes and cover letters. We did language and cultural revitalization, and also just basic life skills like teaching them how to cook. And then also just offering spaces for them to relax, have fun, get out of the cold Manitoba winter for a bit if they needed, and also the hot Manitoba summers. But during my time there, and this has always stuck with me, we had this one, I would say he's about 12-ish, who would come in all the time. We were really close with him and his family, and he was, I guess, a regular to our drop-in center. And it was in the middle of summer. It was really hot, as we know Manitoba gets, especially southern Manitoba when you have the lakes. It's just humid as heck. And he came in, and we thought maybe he had kind of heat stroke. So we set him in a cool room. We gave him water, some freezies, and just had him kind of settle down. But it turns out that he was actually having an overdose to painkillers. And I just recall one of my coworkers, this high-pitched scream that she had, and I ran downstairs, and yeah, this 12-year-old was having an overdose on our desks on painkillers and opiates. And we called the ambulance, and he's completely fine now, and he had recovered. But I remember he came back in, and we had asked him what happened, and he told us that he was, using and abusing painkillers, and just thought it was a natural way of growing up into Indigenous adulthood. And that kind of setting, that comment, have stuck with me forever since, which really kind of sparked this new book that I'm working on, again, Making Love with the Land, in thinking about how these conversations that we have as Indigenous folks from across Turtle Island are around conversations around mental health are so mute, or they're done in secret. They aren't normalized in a way that I think we ought to see them. And I think those who are most impacted are Indigenous youth, Two-Spirit youth, but Indigenous youth at large, and also Indigenous students, specifically those who need to leave their communities to go to post-secondary, be it for trades or for getting any sort of degree. I joke with my cousins that they are like grade 10s hard, and I am just finishing my PhD, and I was like, let me tell you, grade 27 is not so much more fun either. So I feel like I've been in school my whole life, and just thinking about the impact that leaving has as an Indigenous person, leaving the community and being in a whole new kind of larger urban setting, being without friends or family, having to kind of craft anew. And then also just being overworked, I would say, within academia, within the university, or within college. It's a lot of work, really quick, really fast, and you're also trying to just kind of, I say, gain your foothold, gain footing in that space. One difficult thing I would say that post-secondary has is kind of when we're removed or have to move from our communities, the kind of unfortunate but the prevalence of deaths in our family, which asks us to kind of mourn alone rather than being able to go home. And again, this is all pre-COVID, because it's costly to return home. And so I'd say like that, and then holidays or achievements, again, spending them by yourselves. And I think these are all like exacerbated in COVID right now. Not being able to return home, being isolated, being lonely and alone. And then I would say trying to wrestle with or contain or find balance for our mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional health. And that for me, I know, has just been a completely difficult thing to do, primarily on my own as a student. So I think you're dogged, you're worked to the bone. COVID, although has given us a lot of opportunities to speak virtually like this, as students, I know, or just as people in general, it also creates this condition in which we are always felt that we must always be available. So I think that we are also like working even harder than we have before. Less so that we have to travel, but that we don't have to travel and we can kind of do all of this work continually, virtually, be it in the classroom, or be it in learning, or be it in just in kind of a morning form too. So it's been a whirlwind. My thoughts go out, and my love and medicines are for all of the students and Indigenous youth who are dealing with this. I imagine, but I cannot imagine the extent to that these students and folks must be like wrestling with. So I thought I would share a little bit. So in that little preface that I was giving you about this child basically addicted to painkillers, the question I asked was, what kind of pain does a child have to be in order to be addicted to painkillers? And in thinking about perhaps the kind of shyness, I suppose, of talking about mental health, I thought the best way that I could do it was to also put myself on the line. So the book is all about me, a nonfiction book, or we might call autobiography, of me dealing with my own mental health issues, and also conversations and interviews I've done. I thought if I could show that I could do it in a large platform like a book, it would also help have conversations for those youth. So I'm just going to read a little bit from it. I've never read this one aloud, so MFN ERC gets the little behind the scenes. So this is taking place in the midst of COVID. And I'll just kind of cut a little bit from it, but so just kind of speaking in COVID, I live alone as a single person in this pandemic. I have a dog now, but I was, for the grand majority of it, I was also finishing my PhD and working on my writing, and then winning all of these accolades. So I was so continually asked for interviews from folks like CBC. And so it was like all of this grand high, and then turning off the computer and turning around and realizing you're just alone. So like continually, like the continuation of that creates like a toll on the body and one's mental health, to the point last December, all of these things were happening. There was a bunch of performers here in Calgary, Black, Indigenous, and folks of color, who were doing renditions, I would say theatrical renditions of this book, which are all dealing with a lot of my mental health issues or history problems with it, or intergenerational traumas. And it just bombarded me with all of these images. And I just remember being alone and no one able to kind of contact family or friends. And there was just this real intense moment where I started to wrestle with suicidal ideation. Because it was just like months and months and months of just being completely alone. So I start there. That's how this piece begins. But I'm just going to jump over that. I think I can just kind of give you that, and then move into like how I kind of fixed it and kind of remove that from my mindset. So it's beginning kind of in towards the end of December 2020 and into the present day. So this is the present day, and it's set actually in British Columbia, where I drove a couple of weeks ago to finish this book in this little city called Golden. I was there by myself in an Airbnb. I've returned to the mountains, squeezed between the breasts of radium's cliffs. Again, I have returned to the navel of thought from which I spewed forth the final breaths and the commas of Johnny Appleseed, where I finished nesting in the Rocky Mountains. Staring out onto the lone edge of a raised hillside, it too, that hill, pretending it was a mountain in the making, willing the wind to propel it into a taller vista, wanting to wave to the snow caps, reflecting pisim or sun into the needles of elder pine. The hill's convex aperture. I wanted to splice open a cigarette to lay down tobacco for guidance and reciprocity from my ancestors, here in a territory far from my own. I take off my moccasins and my socks, dig my toes into the mud, curl into a consonant, and arch my feet up into the sun rising above the mountaintops. I close my eyes. Here, my soul too becomes a bowl. I foreground the arch of my foot against the bevel of the Rockies. We craft a parallax of containers, thirsting to be filled, me and the sky, one of earth, one of snow, one of ground, one of sky. I think this might be creation in the making. Fill me, I say to no one visible, but everyone I've ever touched and loved stands here on the hill with me in the dogged light of near morning, rising their naked feet into the sky. Rising too, we pull the hill with us, granting its wish, allow it to become a mountain, allow the hill to become elder, allow the hill to become unmoored from the sewage pipes it hides beneath it, and enter anew into definitions with no score or merit in this bullseye we call the English language. And there begins a horizon from which I gallop into language. The swarth of kin I house now upside down, by which I mean right side up, feet planted into sky world. Their long braids and fingers, both saplings and witness trees, they reach for me, tickling with foliage, a brushing to my hair that's knotted into a nest from the violent whippings of merely surviving. I tell myself that this richness of being, singularly and yet wholly connected, is a breadth of breath that expands beyond the monotony of being I've so carefully contained myself within during COVID. And yet the refrain that is housed within me in these particular moments we find ourselves in globally, please stop, you're killing me, continually rings like a chime in a windstorm. The burnout of overworking in COVID as a student and as an academic and as a writer and as a person, and the virtual availabilities not only light a flame, but an inferno that wrenches me into ash and bone so much further than burnout. When I return into myself, I remember why I have come here to the mountains. My aunties are selling raffle tickets on Facebook for 2 children's bicycles to raise enough money for a headstone for my uncle who has passed. Another aunt of mine, I picture clutching my uncle's ashes in a soup pot, waiting for the moment we can all meet again and properly release him back into the breathing roots, the lungs of his trap line. Patsy Cline and Garth Brooks harmonizing in her home on vinyl loops as a mourning ethic. I think of my grandmother, Rose, who yet sits unmarked in Saskatoon, her burial rites and recognition, a poem in the landscape of Canadian literature, the poem, which is from Full Metal Indigiqueer. Like her autopsied body, taken apart and examined by doctor and scholar and reader and student alike. This ritualistic asking, this giving of medicine, then becomes both in service of gratitude and an overloaded act of grieving. I walk back to the cabin in Golden I have come to write in. The High Women's Cocktail and a Song is playing in my earpods. Amanda Shires warbles, "Don't you look at me, girl, like I'm already gone. The day is close. It won't be long." All of this, I wonder for who or for what. I think of Notawi, my father, of Ligawi, my mother, of Wagoltuin, of all of our relations. I think of the conversations I've had with many of the yous in this manuscript, the yous who are sometimes afraid to talk of their mental health, having drafted contingency plans for the what if, should the moment we contract the sickness of this pandemic takes us too soon. I think of the half-joking, half-dead serious inquiries of what would become of this manuscript if I were to wilt into a flattened petal, a dried bouquet of wildflowers, alone in a bed, tubed and plastic-lunged in a hospital cot, if I were lucky, or caked over alone in the bathroom peeling oxygen out of tiled floorboards. How close is the day if I close the day prematurely in this gratuitous grieving? I want to ask Brandy Carlisle if she ever became a crowned sparrow, and if so, could she teach me too? I want to ask you if you have ever unshelved yourself from that wheel in Laredo. I am trying, Creator knows it, so let me roll this back for you. It's nearing Christmas in 2020, and I am driving home from Alberta to Manitoba in a frenzied speed of 130 kilometers an hour. The prairies are easy, I tell myself. You can always spot a cop miles away on the flatlands, their cruisers a white stain on the earthen mound. The Trans-Canada Highway a gauze to the spilling I am conducting. I wrap the Cypress Hills windings around me, a simple tourniquet, concrete, rose, sagebush. I am racing home to save myself, as I am tired and full of terror. Bits of me flake off like petrified bark in the gusts of Saskatchewan winds that pour into my car as I open the window. I watch the skin on my arm blow away into dust in the squall, dance upon my car dash, squeeze itself out of the tiny crack of my window, and mushroom into living sky. When I cross the Manitoban border, the night is thick, it's viscous. I meander through the night's gels, sticky from its humid sweat, ectoplasm, wet from panting, dry cracking tongue, want for thirst. It's community for the sake of surviving. It's here after weeks of smudging for communion, not of the Christian stylizations, but of union for community for the sake of surviving a pandemic that requires the obliteration of touch, intimacy, a kiss to shotgun breath back into the body. It's here I witness magic. Again, Brandy Carlisle howls into the sky, glazed with stars that look like sugar and pinhole. She sings, "You should always let the sun go down on your aim. Let it burn you to sleep." I see a shooting star dart across the sky, something I have not witnessed in the light pollution of urban cities and fluorescent nettings. I haven't seen it in a dog's age. I wish upon the star's particles and its granularity, the trailing of life fleeing from its now foreign head, this light, this star pouring into my retina, being a dying flare, mercenary. The body of the star disintegrates, but it's not to say that it dies, it transforms into mineral, into potassium, into oxide and oxygen. We always return to our mother. When you're home, you're already home, Carlisle sings. The luminosity of this majesty overcharges my senses. History now writ as a dying version of me smoking in my truck, lips powdered out of a cracked window, snaking out of aged skins. In another history, which is to say that present moment from which I experienced this, and also now this future ledge from which I perch now, the sky blooms like a wound, a corsage, or a wormhole, or a needle's eye, saponi gun, and I thread into its weavings. Thrust, I am dancing sky, holding burning cherub, like those wishing stars, babies rushing into elderhood, weeping for motherhood, and I, a birth giver, star walker, the grandness of a body whose pouch I zippered out of to be here in this body, so named Joshua. The sky is ablaze, though, not of apocalypse, though, for surely this is an ending, but as a mouth slightly ajar. The sky is ablaze with teeth askew. The sky is ablaze with a tongue slicked into curvature to suckle milk and galactic dew. Here, Creator blesses me. Now I am a bobbin unwound fully on the seat of my Chevrolet, and Creator tells me, take what you need, take it all. This is a gifting for you, but make sure you give something back, my boy. As the night sky becomes an inferno of babes scraping across the belly of something we might call God, this meteor shower, I am presented with wishes aplenty, for which I ask for health and happiness for those I love and care for. And as the presentation of floral fires ends, one lone meteor stops momentarily, winks at me. Its light fills my mouth like a blooming, a feast of magic, a feast of divinity. I wish for happiness for myself in the form of something material, something that can hold me, someone whose palms I can draw hearts into their broken lines and intersecting histories wrought upon their callous skin that I smooth like wind caressing sandstone. I wish for partnership. I wish for caretaking. I wish for excitement. I wish for kinder tomorrows. I wish for joy buttoned into being. And I am leaving. Oh, I am tired. And I'm coming home because I'm yours. Brandy Carlisle hums into a barreled echo in my car. I orate all of this to say, in you, I smell the rich grains of asteroid and parallel or planetary parallaxes, Manitoba. I taste honeydew when I mouth your name into the air, and my belly blossoms with seedling and story when I drift into dusk. Your richness a buffalo hide, papoose for cradling into soft sleep. I find the wish granted in these limited but wide connectivities we share across latitude and nationhood. Manitoba, you're a skeleton key found in dust and in pixel. I want to wish to thank Creator for putting mud to rattle with a lipstick kiss to form you into being so that we could find one another here at the end of the world. The both of us holding hands as the nation state burns and we emerge into newer horizons rich with possibility and potentiality. I speak here of a wishing for radical change and rhizomes of care, out of global care, but also one of selfishness. I think the word of this pronoun, you, so here I'll build a world from a noun and balloon it into wishes. I place a kiss into the wind in the hopes you find it when you need love. I put tobacco down for you here in the Bow River in Alberta, which cascades into Saskatchewan and Manitoba, ultimately emptying into Ontario watersheds, in the hopes that when you swim, you have a hand to hold. I'll whisper to rain and snow a love coo, so that when you're feeling lonely, sweet words will tickle your cochlea. I'll tell a starling to echo my song so that you'll find musicality and oratory, bits of my breath, when the words orchestrate around you. In this limited materiality across the chasm of kilometer, I want you to know that across the bent line of sundown, there is a person waving endlessly, waiting patiently, even lifetimes if needed. For the moment, he can celebrate you in the ballet of bodies, the warmth of skin touching, the shivering of excitement, the brush of lip skin on lip skin, and the sifting of fingers through hair. A wish, one I saved from that Manitoban evening, I send to you all in eastward gusts. Take it. I hope it works for you too. My affection pours forth from my body tectonically, a gifting to the use of this manuscript. And sometimes I am left alone, abalone, smelling of ash and smudge. But now, back in my body, meteor shower having ended, the lone winking comet swallowed by the sky, we return to nothing but deadlight and sky scarrings. The severedness of our connection to dimensionality, now a light line on the skin of infinity. And I, like a Tim or dog, put my head out of the window and I lap up the remnants of the comet's sky-peopled wishings. Having scraped the sky and killed the bird, I thank the comet for its gifts. I untie my shoe and toss it out the window as a promise of returning, and cyclicity too. I am racing home for rejuvenation, though, at the height of isolation, intimacy starvation, vast amounts of working hours with little to no reprieve from my own warring thoughts and anxieties, from which I have emerged slightly charged but nearing depletion after an encounter, as I noted earlier, with suicidal ideation. This running home is more than a reunion, though. It's a raging against the death knell the world has been ringing, both in this particular momentous pandemic, but also those church bells that have been foregrounding their death hymn for Indigenous folks since 1492. Please stop, you're killing me, is my refrain that accompanies this ominous tinkling. What alarms me most lately is that the asking of "how are you" becomes a bewildering jab, inasmuch that I swallow pain whole, and I regurgitate little worlds for others while I exist in the canyon of a junkyard, spelling out nihilism on the cutting rims of tin meant to be jingle dresses. How do we care for one another when we're also entirely exhausted on differing planes of historical and intergenerational existence? How do we hold on to one another even with the announcing, how do we hold one another when even the announcing of the pronoun you in the sentence, "how are you," feels much like a stitch ripper than a darting needle? Prior to this pandemic, conversations primarily with Black or Indigenous or folks of color and or queer folks around mental health and wellness were choreographed dances indeed. And now here, I find the peppering of "how" alongside the pronoun "you" in the sentence "how are you," an adverse adverb that hinges sometimes on the profane. A simple asking can be so easily become a violent undoing. I am teaching myself the ethics of asking and engaging, of when the moment and level of trust is correct, even with my most beloved people in life, how to care for ourselves and one another when we're on the brink of obliteration. On Valentine's Day 2021, my apartment flooded from a burst pipe in my living room. I was informed that the rupture was caused from an open window. This after my heat was only recently fixed a week prior, after weeks of being unavailable. I awake from two men knocking on my door, one who names himself the building manager, the other a contractor here to temporarily fix the issue. I find out weeks later that this building manager is indeed not the manager, but a member of the condo board, who has masqueraded this position to gain access to my space here and prior before. And the idea who else he has done this to haunts me. The building manager reprimands me for two things. One, for not answering my door earlier. Here it is a Sunday morning and I was asleep. And two, belittles me for not noticing the flooding myself. Again, both lacks being on account of my sleeping. They both come into my apartment. The contractor gets to fixing the pipes, and the building manager surveys my home, looking at the Simone McLeod, the Jerry Whitehead, Pat Rudier, and the Kent Monkman paintings on my walls to announce, "I didn't realize you were so cultural. I think it's great that the natives are still so in touch with their culture." He continues to inspect my condo, noting the differences in layouts as compared to his, announcing that he lives just right above me, a fact I am already well aware of after having asked him multiple times not to ash his cigarettes onto my cedar bush out back. He comes across a bullwhip that my father bought me when I was a child. You shouldn't use the thermostat as a hook for your sex toys. And as he continues, I can only imagine the thoughts running through his head as he sees pictures of Queer Joy on my fridge, an 8th generation snagging blanket draped across my couch, and the lingering scent of sweetgrass from the previous evening's smudge. I entertain him to busy his wandering eyes, his dirty, sullied fingers, and to abate the power he holds over me as a tenant in the building. After the contractor finishes with the radiator, they both leave and detail how I should begin to get a hold of my tenant's insurance, as I will be held entirely liable for this. Hours later, my radiator pulled apart into pieces and lying on the floor, my entire living room's contents being shifted into my tiny kitchen and hallways, the apartment floor ripped up of carpet and floorboard, and the drywall pulled off to dry the insulation. The repair agency installs large, cumbersome, and noisy fans in my condo. I asked for an update, knowing I cannot safely live in this place, which was later deemed a fire hazard, nor work nor house my dog. Chief, my German Shepherd pup, is kenneled almost entirely for 3 days, and I'm left to stay in my bedroom, barricaded in from the furniture and artwork being scattered across the apartment for the drying process. When I get a hold of my insurance company, they immediately move me into a temporary Airbnb. I am never once updated on how the long process of repair will take. Chief, my dog, and I move into a space in the northeast of Calgary. We stay a week. Nothing is fixed yet. We move into a second home for another week, again, entirely without an update. We then move into a third cabin in the Mission District of Calgary and end up staying here for 5 weeks. The repairs are still not done yet. During this time, I sign a new lease, pack, hire movers and cleaners, and eventually move into a house here in Inglewood, Calgary. It is early April when I'm finally settled again after having fronted thousands of dollars to rent these spaces for nearly 7 weeks, having limited access to Wi-Fi and working spaces, asking for safe and ethical help during COVID with Chief so I can catch up on my now bombarded email accounts, the looming deadline of a doctoral dissertation, and assignments and deadlines looming and coming. During these 7 weeks, I hustle the gigs and freelance work that I can to try and replenish my depleted checking and savings account. I judge 2 literary awards, begin reading as a judge for the Giller Prize long list, and undertake the arduous process of Canada Reads in its multiples of media requests. All of this just to survive. What has bothered me the most about this process was the lack of care or protocol around COVID safety of the building and its managers to expect me to lie home while contractors came and went, many times unmasked, to fix my condo. And 2, the ways in which the repairman and the building manager not only did not update me as to what was happening or projected timelines, but more refutably, the removal of my artwork from my walls and the scattering of them around the house. My carved wooden eagle's beak broken off, oil and fingerprints are left on my paintings, ceremonial feathers are found on the ground, and a beaded earring is crushed beneath the wheels of my rolling coffee table. The condo's upending, its brokenness, mirrors me in this moment as I pack up the home that displaced me for a new house to move into. The retreat into a new, more stable place is welcoming, but it's the undressing, the undoing, the unlevel of removal from the wall and mantle that pains my chest. The whole act of packing is one of mourning. Here, me finding gifts, love letters, goodbye notes from the multiple of people addressed in this book. Though the real harm that is felt is that of the violation. I feel in this momentous change in my life, the forced entry of and for white folks, their anonymity of touch, the broken beak and the bone of wood feels like the snapping of limb and cartilage, the destruction of this place I called sacred, this place I called home. I feel again as I did when I crashed into condominiums carpeted floors like Sky Woman when I first moved to Calgary, alone and isolated and vulnerable for the first time in my life without community. When I am settled and feeling safe from this flight into new home, one of you will ask, "How are you?" And I will unravel as yarn, drowning out all sound in sight. I will weep the sorrows of these events. I will weep the histories of epidemic and pandemics that I and we have already survived ancestrally. And I will weep the almighty cry that throws everyone within earshot from their bodies and their bones. The thrush of unmitigated sorrow becomes a small saving grace in this moment. I will not be able to answer this question. I will just ask you to hold me. May your arms with their brisk, rough prairie hairs, may your arms with their woodlands grit hold steady a body exploding like an infant star into fractal configurations. Pimatisuin, I will continually coo into my linings the act of living, kiss into my own arms. Let me leech from this embrace a bit of joy, a bit of futurity. Let me live a while yet. Please stop, you're killing me, I'll say as I hold this wreckage like a garbage dump in this contraption I call my body. I'll will myself to smile, dry enzymes from my cheek and collar, and continue into a Zoom meeting wholly performative of and drunk for this foreign verb we call joy. And lately, I continually find myself making plans with kin for when this is over. While hopeful, this continual deferral, this ellipsis of living, reminds me of how very much embroiled we are within a system of continually warring. When is over? Will that day ever come? Will our collective hope bloom into the revolutionary Indian joy when we emerge on the other side? Can our calves carry us across such hilltops, across such chasms? What is over and where is over? In Nehialuan or in Cree, we say Yisipi as a means of signaling an end, a finishing. If over were to be a place, I would name it homeland. Over signaling a finale, but also an entrance into richer futures. For this world we inhabit is overwrought, overwritten. I would name over a space in which futurities lie, rich, dark tendrils want for thirst in the space of overness. Over being the potentiality for excellence in this collective grief we call occupation. I would name over the Dover Hills, my favorite spot in Okinstis or Calgary. I would name over the feeling of sitting along the Bow River reading, shirtless, in tiny swim trunks, save alone for Pisim or sun above. I would name over the propping of myself up an elbow, stomach stretch mark pooling beneath me and not having to wonder in the solitude and isolation of aloneness of this is what it feels like to be of normal body or of normal mind. Over would be the ease of being. Over would be a bingo hall full of Indian kin bucking for their numbers, trolls and lucky charms atop their numbers, scrounging chains for chip-ins for a friendship center hot dog. Over would be a naming ceremony, would be a powwow, would be the rolling head of John A. MacDonald that later becomes a terrarium in the aftermath. Gisipi, I return to the end, which is never a finishing, but like I said, a beginning. I return to the bow, to the red, to the milk rivers. I return to the river to ponder the end. The river connects us all. We each have our spot, which we sometimes share, which I'd in turn call a truer type of nudity than the act of undressing. Here, we each have our spot to mourn, play, make love, and self-create at the river. Gisipi, gisipi, gisipi sipiu, gisipinao moskineo. I spew into you the bile of colonial clay, here hoping to create. Thank you. I'm hoping maybe some folks have questions. I know there's a bit of time left, but.
Oh, hi! Oh my goodness, I was just looking, when are they gonna put me on screen? Oh my goodness. Agosani Kinanaskamatin, I thank you for that reading. It was riveting and it is so, it was so profound. And I have to say, I know that I can't take too much time, but I want to say I'm a big fan of yours. It is an honor to have you join us here. And the exploration that you do with words, the story, concepts, just brilliant. And it is truly representative of who we are. I always say that our cultures are based on high conceptual thought, understanding of nuance and, you know, and every hue of like existence and thought and emotion and relationships. Mm-hmm. Your reading today brought all of that together. I am like truly, I feel truly blessed today to have heard you. I want to keep talking, but I can't. I want to say on behalf of Lighting the Fire and the Manitoba First Nations Education Resource Center, it was an absolute joy and an honor to have you with us. And we do have a number of comments, and I do want to get to them. And you might want to make, you might want to comment on some of them. We have about 10 minutes, so I'm just going to take you through some of them because I thought they were very interesting too. Like when you talked about the ethics of asking. Mm-hmm. Like that, somebody, so Lisa Michelle, she just submitted that comment, the ethics of asking ... Yes.
I mean, it's a difficult thing right now. Like, we're all so completely stretched out, like a hide, and exhausted, and like pounded brain and all, that like I just find, like, when I ask folks questions, the real answer is never given, because one, they're afraid to put that burden on me, or sometimes to also answer it for themselves, because that's a boundary that they've hidden to hide, or to contain. But also, like, right now, in this kind of extreme depth of COVID we're in, I've been thinking, like, to ask someone, how are you? I need to be prepared myself, mentally and emotionally, to have an entire, like, tsunami pour forth too.
Right.
And that's just one single person. So it's like, how do we do that as communities is what I'm trying to think about. Because to let that loose, like, there would just be entire oceans pouring forth from our eyes and our pores. So it's like really important that I think about, and I'm trying to also say, is like, how do we like mitigate harm when we're asking these very simple, basic questions, which were normal prior, but are so overloaded now.
Right. There's not just a simple like dynamic anymore. Like, everything's so intense.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to manage ourselves a lot of times in that.
Exactly. We're all learning. I feel like this pandemic has like regressed us all into like children again. Like, we have to like learn how to be, and coping mechanisms, and like this new language, like saying COVID and AstraZeneca and Moderna. So it's a whole lot of learning and unlearning, and I think we're all doing that together. But it's just important that for me to remember that we're all on different registers, and to be weary and mindful of that, specifically for folks' mental health.
Yes. And I was just going to say, and that I feel so grateful to have heard you, speak and do your reading, and remind me of, I've worked in that region, that territory you're talking about. So I've been on the Bow River, and I've, worked by the Bow River, and I've lived by the Bow River, and I have such an internal connection with that. And I feel like that is that reminder too, which is so important by what you said, which is, all we can do is ground ourselves in our love and the ancestral knowledge, try to find that peace, right?
Exactly.
So
and like
complicated because of like not just the pandemic, but what you talked about, the experience with that apartment, like that was intense. And
it was a moment. But I would just like a bit of advice that I would give to like future students too, or educators of the students who are leaving their communities, of Indigenous students primarily, is to, like, for me, when I came here, I was a completely different land base, completely different language, completely different people, right? And as the Blackfoot know, the Cree and the Blackfoot have a long history. It's always a good icebreaker to be like, sorry about the Cree, but I'm also half Nish too. So, but yeah, it was important for me to ground myself to something that I could like make a home of in the land, and it was the Bow River. And then what I had learned is that the Bow River connects all the way to Manitoba. So in a way, I was also connected to home. And I just remember telling myself, like, when I put tobacco in the bow, I am also sending prayers home. And that was a good connection for me to remember that I may be away in kilometers, but the rivers connect.
Beautiful, Manasan. I want to also bring up Shauna Spence. She had early, like as you were reading, she said, your voice is very calming and your words are amazing. Is there a plan for an audiobook with you reading?
So my novel, This Little Firecracker, Johnny Appleseed, does have an audiobook, which is on Audible, and I think most places you can get an audiobook, in which I did the entire reading for it. It was very exhausting.
Yes.
I don't know if I'll do it with this new nonfiction coming out, but Johnny Appleseed definitely is done in my voice, from start to finish, complete with all of the holy hells and red slang that Treaty 1 is famous for. So.
Well, I have to say, you're another comment, you know, just like talking about what you're saying. I put your voice, Stephanie Joywood said, I put your voice on my soundbar and your voice filled my house. You're so gifted.
I think it's just like growing up with a lot of loud aunties who I'm always with, and then I was like put into those bingo halls real early, so I can play a page of 15 real good now. But yeah, I just grew up in like a family of like mostly women storytellers, and we would sit around drinking like red rose tea and smoking cigarettes in the house. I wasn't, 'cause I was a kid, but and eating bannock and like hangover soup and stew, and just like telling stories for hours and hours and hours. And everyone would try to compete and one up one another, and then it would get like there was snagging stories, and then all kinds of fun things came out. But yeah, just like that was the environment I grew up in, and I think I tried to like bring that when I write and how I speak, because that's just who I am too. So thank you.
I have to say that I think that that dynamic, which you're talking about, which is the competition in the oral tradition of storytelling, is one of the most fascinating dynamics to me, because I too grew up with that. And once it started, it wasn't going to stop. And in for a ride for the next like hour or two of like, okay, who's going to say what? What's going to happen? So much fun.
It is,
right?
yeah, it is.
Okay, so I'm going to get to a couple more questions. This is what I mean. I got to stop talking myself because I interview you here. But okay, let's go on to Selena Roxanne Goosehead. What intrigued you to write this creation story? I also loved the way it was worded, not as graphic as some stories.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you, Selena. Some of my work can be graphic, I suppose, and that I just try to normalize two-spiritedness. But these ones, I also don't. So it's nonfiction. I can't really hide behind a character like this glitter princess Johnny, or my first one with character Zoa in Full Metal. And also like, so for me, what I wanted to do with this book was like talk about my mental health, so that others would be able to feel allowance to talk about theirs. I think that truth and that is a gift I can give. But I also wanted to do it for like two-spirit youth primarily, who are dying of suicide at alarming rates across Turtle Island, and even heightened in COVID. Because I think a lot of the times we don't have, as two-spirit folks, we're always told that like we're revered in the past, or we were like medicine people, and it's like always like that past tense, like you were, that irks me. And a lot of the stories are just, they need to be unearthed again. They're there, they're not dead, they're not forgotten, but they're just forgone a little bit. So what I think like the power of story, even in those kind of competitions, is like we can craft our own creation stories for ourselves sometimes too, even when they're needed if we don't have them. So that was kind of what I wanted to do, is like thinking about, you know, the creation stories that I've been told and grew up with. How can I put them into a sense where it's like home calling for me in a moment of crisis? And I hope that, yeah, people see that just as an allowance to like craft what you need when you need it, and be your own best medicine at all times.
That is so profound. It's so relevant. And I think, and what you're saying too about like the idea of the two-spirited, you know, like being, you know, traditionally had this significant role, or had, you know, an integral role, were equitable, like that. And the reality though is that there is this high rate of suicide amongst the LGBTQI youth. And I think that, you know, that we have to all challenge that. Like we all have to say, you know, because I really don't understand it. Like I don't understand where that, you know, I mean, except that, you know, my parents both were residential school survivors, right? And what happened to them there? And what happened to them there caused my mom to leave the church. You know, my father wasn't much of a church family, but, you know, so I wasn't raised in the church. And I'm so grateful for that, because what I inherited then was from the aunties and from my mother, and who, you know, was just a part of society. That's just that's all normal. Like, you know, we didn't have any of this distortion from, you know, the colonizers or the colonial thinking.
Exactly.
Really
Yeah.
important what you're saying and making it relevant, making it now.
Well, thank you. And I just say, look to your indigenous languages. Like many of them, we don't have gender in it, and like
Right.
that's just to speak volumes to how we were before.
Absolutely. And I just have an auntie who is still like my mom and, my mom's side, their first language is their language. So my auntie still does the interspersing of the pronouns, which a lot of speakers did do. And we were raised, they would say, oh, she's going to go get her boots. He'll be back in a second because she doesn't like these ones that we got him. Like it was always like interspersing. So I love that, you've raised that. I do have 2 more questions I'm going to get to. Have you, talking about what you just talked about, have you worked on developing community-based workshops for Two-Spirited empowerment and awareness?
So once I think when I return home, like I have worked with writing camps and youth groups here in Alberta, but I haven't been home for so long, for a long period of time to kind of do something like this. But I know like Manitoba's in like the beautiful hands of Albert McLeod, having like the Two-Spirit powwows. But ideally, like what I would like to craft, and what I'm doing, I'm just applying for this tenure track job in Indigenous literatures here at Calgary, is I would like to kind of, create not only I don't even want it to be in the university, but use the university's funds to craft these kind of workshops and spaces for Two-Spirit youth who can kind of come to do writing workshops or to practice theater or to practice the arts at large. And like that is like my lifelong dream. And I want to make like this space for them all, everyone to come, and be able to like identify as they want, dress and just like be accepted, and but also to put that into arts, because I think, when I say arts, I kind of mean stories. Like I think stories are theater, stories are poetry, stories are novels, stories are painting, right? So like that's the kind of dream I have, is to kind of make enough money and have enough social clout, I guess, to like make a space for that for the youth, because everything I do is for them. Right.
And you will have like Auntie Tina supporting you. I would support that. I think it's brilliant. I love it. And it's so important. I'm just going to like roll through a couple of comments, and I have one last quick question from one of our listeners. So you have had people that have been saying as you're reading, wow, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing what you're reading. I'm so humbled and inspired. Nice story. You just took me on a journey of hope and love. Agosani. The metaphors were magnified to a point where you wonder what's coming next. And last, I'm just going to say, I want to thank you so much for acknowledging Two-Spirited youth. My daughter too committed suicide in 2016 for being who she was. Thank you for your thanks to all Two-Spirited. She was transgender. Selena, our prayers are with you.
I'll put some medicine down tonight, Selena, for your family.
Okay, and our last question, which is, you've raised this, like, thank you again, Joshua, that your work is so important. And so when is the book being released? Dixie said, you all want to read it.
So I'm just finishing. I'm actually probably as soon as I finish today, I'm going to finishing the last bit of the edits. So it's scheduled to come out 2022, looking like late spring. So stay tuned. It's called Making Love with the Land. And I'll be sure to splash it across my Facebook and Instagram and stuff, so folks can see and be ready for it. But I'll hopefully have my second vaccination by then, and I can come back to Manitoba and do some tours in Winnipeg, but also in northern Manitoba. So I can kind of come to the reses and the spaces and meet you all and have conversations with you all, and just like eat a bunch of bannock and drink some tea. Okay.
And we'll bring the jam.
Yeah, bring the jam.
Bring the jam. Agase. Exactly. Okay, Kinanaskatan, Joshua, you're amazing. And our prayers to you too as you continue your journey.
Hi, thank you all. Enjoy the rest of this, and I can't wait to see you in the future.
Wow. I want to thank everybody who was listening to Joshua and for sending in your comments and your questions and for sharing with him and with us. It was a really, really critical issue that he is a writer and he's one of those people that makes the arts the avenue, that we can tell our stories and these really painful stories and look for hope. And so, again, we thank Joshua for being with us as a keynote speaker. I do have one more person that I would like to introduce you to, and she's going to do closing remarks for the morning, and then I will be done, and Joy will be taking over the noon hour entertainment, and then you will have your sessions this afternoon. You have a really great agenda. So I'm going to introduce you to a woman who has a great political history. I have been able to work with her and alongside her as when she was a Grand Chief, and she's been a chief, and she is an elder, and she is a political advisor, and she's here to speak on behalf of Grand Chief Jerry Daniels. Please welcome Margaret Swan. And she's here on behalf of the Southern Chiefs Organization.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now? Miigwech Tina Keeper. Miigwech Thank you very much, Joshua. Listening to you talk, I felt it in here. I had a son who was two-spirited and was so blessed to have that young man in my life for the 29 years I had him in my life. So listening to you talk helped my soul, helped my spirit, keeps me connected with my son in spirit. I want to say there is so much that works against us in our land sometimes, but we are so resilient in how we somehow manage to navigate through this systematic bureaucracy, I'll call it. Our people have lived through a terrible history that has caused so much damage, and we still manage to carry on and live our lives productively and do the best we can to look after ourselves, our families, Mother Earth. And I want to say to all the students, don't ever give up. No matter what challenges face you, always look for the light in the tunnel. It's always there and you will find it. And connect with those who support you. Because we are so damaged, there's not enough of us in our families that are able to support each other, and COVID does not help. So harness that support, live up to the challenges, you'll be better than okay. I want to also say miigwech to all the recipients who are getting awards. Thank you for making our path brighter and helping us to make our lives better. On behalf of the Southern Chiefs Organization, congratulations to the recipients, and to the youth, stay strong. Miigwech.
Oh. Miigwech, Margaret Swan, and also for sharing your story with us, and that that enables all of us to get better and to be stronger, and to be stronger allies, and to be stronger voices. And we have to support our youth. Miigwech. I have to say it's been a great honor for me to be here today. I have really, really enjoyed hearing everybody speak. It is it is something that we all miss, which is being together in that big hall. And but nonetheless, we have had really, really profound, really important, and really kind and caring remarks today and sharing. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to now hand the rest of the day off to Joy Keeper. What a good name, eh? Joy Keeper.
Thank you, Tina. And you did a great job. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody. What a powerful morning, like to have our leadership, to have Joshua Whitehead speak, to have representation from across our province and from all the different treaty areas. I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this portion of the conference for the next 3 days. We'll be having entertainment from around this time, tomorrow, Thursday, and also Friday. On Friday, we'll start the closing ceremonies at 1 o'clock. But tomorrow morning, we're going to have a keynote speaker, which will be Wanique Horn-Miller, and then followed by recovery learning. What does it mean? We'll have that panel on tomorrow morning, starting at about 10:45. The following day, our keynote address will be with cultural knowledge keepers and comedians, singers, dancers, Tanaya Jo Hall, and also her husband, Joel Wood from Northern Cree. So that's going to be a great morning as well. And each afternoon at lunchtime, we're going to have a lineup of great entertainers. So right now, I would just like to let you know that part of our lunchtime entertainment is gift cards for our registered delegates. I'm going to announce one now after our next performance and just before we break for workshops. So the winner of our gift card for the registered delegates is, drum roll please, Hilda Kent. Congratulations, Hilda. And we'll make sure to get you your gift card out to your snail mail, I guess it will be. Now, it gives me great pleasure to welcome this successful young talent who is from Ebb and Flow First Nation in the Treaty 2 territory and Sandy Bay First Nation in Treaty 1 territory. Gator has been a live performer at many events that I got to see him at and festivals since he was very young. I liken his style and finesse to that of the classic performers of yesteryear, but with a great contemporary sound. You will have to stay tuned. He's up next. Gator's first single with blues master Billy Joe Green, Hard Hearted Woman, made it to #1 on the Indigenous Music Countdown in this past month. Please help me welcome Gator Bolio. Greetings, Gator.
Hello, how's it going?
Good. We're so glad to have you here. Likewise. And I'm going to let you take over and address the crowd, or just hit us up with a song.
Chimigwech. Well, first off, I'll properly introduce myself. Bidebinas, Indigenicas, Kaka Kwekijungi, Kaka Kwekijungudunji, Daga Gawikwendangunji. My name is Coming of the Thunderbird. I come from Ebb and Flow First Nation and Sandy Bay First Nation. And my mom comes from Ebb and Flow, and my dad comes from Sandy Bay. So I always like to acknowledge where I'm from and acknowledge my roots. So without further ado, this first song that I'm going to actually, sorry, I forgot to acknowledge you too. Yeah, so I'm happy to be here for Lighting the Fire conference. And the first song here that I'm going to do for y'all is a song called Hard Hearted Woman. And this song recently just hit number. You are web. Oh, cool. Right. I'm sorry. I was just reading some side comments there. Hello to everybody. Hard Hearted Woman is a song that I recorded with Billy Joe Green. and it's a single on his Featherman Family Keeping the Circle Strong album, and I was very honored and fortunate enough to record with him. And this song has quite the history too. This was my first, not only my first single released, but it was also his first song as well. So without further ado, here's some Hard-Hearted Woman. I met a hard-drinking lady in a barroom last night. She was hardly the type to take home. All I had planned was a night on the town, not a heartache to drag me down. She had the eyes and the kiss that no man could resist. She had a smile that could melt anyone. And nobody told me the life she could spend, the blinding me man's intention. Hard-hearted woman, and don't let me say, don't leave me here on my own. Hard-hearted woman, and don't let me say, no, I can't make it alone. Good, she spun me in a web. I didn't know till that wild night was over. Nobody told me loving was done. The heartache had only begun. Hard-hearted woman, don't let me say, don't leave me here on my own. And hard-hearted woman, and don't let me say, no, I can't make it alone. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a Hard-Hearted Woman there. Just give me a second. I'm gonna tune up Ye Old Axe. But while I have you, I just want to acknowledge just to touch base on some of the topic here that's being discussed throughout the conference, and that being student wellness and cultural and language awareness. And what things that I have to contribute to that is like my thoughts on language and culture is I grew up very strong when it comes to the culture, very very much in that in that circle. You know, I was exposed to my culture at a very young age, and you know, I was taught to listen to my elders and whatnot, and you know, learning about the drum early on in an early age and whatnot, and learning how to sing only benefited me later down the line here as well, because you know, when you learn those drum teachings from your elders and whatnot, that stays with you in your heart, right? So so I apply these teachings that I've accumulated over time when it comes to language and culture, and I have my parents to think of that and thank for that too. You know, my parents, Arlene Flatfoot and Frank Bolio, and it was previously mentioned. Joy previously mentioned there that I recently released my music video today, actually just not too long ago, and it's my first music video, and it's called Highway Number 6. You can check it out on YouTube. Subscribe if you like, but you don't have to if you don't want to. But yeah, it's YouTube. Hit subscribe, and we'll. And the meaning behind this song here, the connection, why it's such an important song to me, that Highway Number 6 song, it's significant to me because the symbol of Highway Number 6, it to me is a symbol. I grew up in southern Manitoba as well as northern Manitoba. I grew up in Ebenflow, Brandon, Winnipeg. You know, I visited Sandy Bay, but we also moved to Norrie House. But everywhere we seem to move, you know, the way my parents are, you know, we're very open to new experiences. They taught us to be open to new experiences. So with that, as we'd move around, you know, we would learn new not like culture, but like, you know, the culture of the community that we were in. And so living in Norrie House for a brief enough time to feel like I can call that place home as well. And connecting to my roots, you know, I wrote a song called Highway Number 6 that just kind of signifies that bridge and that connection. And a lot of other folk, and there's this last part in there where I talk about coming back to the sticks, but you'll see it. But you know, we all got to take a drive out of town and experience that country. Or if you're from the res, when you go home, there's just nothing like going home. So here it is, Highway Number 6. Oh. Costume change here. Oh, you guys like my shirt? My mom made me a ribbon shirt here. Beautiful ribbon shirt, and my medallion actually. But to commemorate our me and Billy's going number 1 on the NCI Indigenous Music Countdown. So there's that, and he's got one too. So just wanted to acknowledge Mama there. All right, here's Highway Number 6 here. Rolling along the Highway Number 6, making my way back to the sticks. A window down, out of this town, racing away from these city lights tonight. Hey! Rolling along the Highway Number 6, making my way back home. Gonna see my mom, gonna see my pa. Yes, things are getting a little better from here. Well, country's where my heart is. Country is my home. Yeah, country's where my heart is. Country is my home. I was talking earlier before I started the song about, you know, going back home and connecting with your roots. You know, good people of Ebenflow and Sandy Bay have always been, that's home, you know. But when I come back to the city, that's how I feel. Back in the city, well now it seems all these bright lights in the city streets Won't be long till I'm back again, rolling along the highway number 6. Oh yeah. Well, country's where my heart is. Country is my home. Yeah. Country's where my heart is. Country is my soul. Country is my home. Country where my heart is. Country is my soul. I see all of your nice comments, by the way. So thank you very much for those. Hello, everybody, again. That was Highway number 6, and that was the song for the music video that I just released today. And I didn't get a chance to drop these off for Miss Keeper, Miss Joy, but I also have some merchandise to get to her as well. So I've got one for each day. So I've got a Gator T-shirt and I've got a Gator mug for a lucky winner on each lunch hour too. And so it's one of the things I do here as an artist is do the merch thing as well. So it's pretty cool. And how are you guys doing out there? First comment to comment wins. All right. So in the spirit of promoting things, I haven't met a lot of you guys out there. Maybe you guys haven't heard of me. Again, my name is Gator Bolio. And the next single I'm going to be releasing is a song called Devil's Vice, and I'll be playing that right away. And I just wanted to acknowledge MF Nurk as well. For years, since I myself was even a high school student, they've had an annual open house there. So the folks over at MF Nurk there have always been very nurturing when it comes to really helping giving somebody confidence, right? And so we just stepped up our game here, MF Nurk. We're doing Lighting the Fire this year right now. But I just want to acknowledge everybody over at MF Nurk for the hard work they do for everybody, and acknowledge Joy Keeper for inviting me here, and also Rachel Bolio, a cousin of mine, also actually directed and produced my music video called Highway number 6, and it's pretty dope. So yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit of Devil's Vice here. I wrote the song. It's a song. It's a drinking song about not drinking. So hopefully, here it goes. I keep looking for a reason, keep hanging on. I can't seem to stop my head going round and round. Yeah, I keep looking for a reason. Put that bottle down. Feels like there's nothing left to lose. Whiskey devil around. Now I've been told I'm out of my mind. Always thought I needed something on my brain, yeah. Thought that life was only happening to me. Yeah, I saw you standing by with a broken heart and misery. And I keep looking for a reason, keep hanging on. I can't seem to stop my head, turn around and around. Yeah, I keep looking for a reason, put that bottle down. 'Cause it feels like there's nothing left to lose with the whiskey devil around. Baby, she still loves me, does the best she can. While I'm out here playing these honky tonks on a worn out stage. Yeah, after all that I've done, guess I should stop playing with fire and messing with the devil's vibe. I keep looking for a reason to keep hanging on, 'cause I can't seem to stop my head, turn around and around. Yeah, I keep looking for a reason, put that bottle down. Like nothing left to lose, whiskey devil around. 'Cause it feels like there's nothing left to lose, whiskey devil around. That was a bit of Devil's Vice for you. Thank you very much. I love this shirt too. And yeah, don't be afraid to comment, folks. I see everything. All right. Oh, hello. Oh, sorry. Give me a second. Sorry, is that the broom? Oh, I can't hear you. Your mic is off. Can you hear me?
Now can you hear me?
Just fine. Thanks. All right.
Okay. Are you going to do one more
Verizon.
song for us, Gator?
Absolutely. Here, this one's going to be an instrumental here with my flute here. I don't know if you guys have noticed this here.
Awesome.
All right.
Take it away.
You ready? All right. Something like that, anyhow.
Awesome.
I don't know if that
Jimmy
was too
Glenn
loud.
Gator,
Hey,
thank you
right on.
so much. This
Absolutely.
meant so much to our audiences.
Absolutely, and likewise, it's always an honor being asked to be a part of these kinds of events and whatnot, especially as an Anishinaabe man. You know what I mean? I try to well, being raised around good people and having great mentors. It's we're trying to do my best as an Anishinaabe man for future generations too, because if I looked up to mentors within the Indian community here, maybe somebody would want my guidance someday, somewhere down the road or whatnot. So, but like everyone else, all we can do is strive to do our best here.
Chimigwech, Gator, I can't tell you how meaningful this has been to have you as our opening act for Lighting the Fire. I remember you as a very young man, maybe a teenager, performing at all of our events. And now to see you as a full realized artist. I just watched while you were singing Highway Number 6, I tuned into it on YouTube. So I
Right on.
encourage everybody to tune into the Highway Number 6 by Gator Bolio on YouTube. It's released today. A big congratulations to you. And
Right.
thank you once again for coming on to Lighting the Fire. And we hope that next year or even before, we're going to see you in a live performance.
Absolutely, you can count on that. And good luck to the rest of the performers. And we got Auntie Rhonda Head there tomorrow, and also we got the great Winston Watney.
Yes, yes. And yes, you will and are mentor to many of our young people. Thank you so much again.
Chimigwech.
And thank you for watching. We're not over yet because we have another prize to give away. And the prize for the gift card is to Edna Evangelista. She is the winner for our gift card. She is a registered delegate for the conference. And I just want to remind you all that at 1 o'clock, the workshops start, and you will link into your username. And you are probably on the digital learning environment right now. And for those of you who are not registered but want to come back, we will be having another performance tomorrow, or another opening tomorrow for the day. And that will include one Ecorn Miller, hosted by Tina Keeper once again, and a recovery learning panel. But at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the incredibly talented Mikey Harris. He's an Indigenous dancer and choreographer from Winnipeg. He specializes in his own unique style, where he fuses traditional Métis jigging with hip hop. He's performed all across North America for 14 years, such as the 2010 Winter Olympics, the Parliament Hills New Year's Bash, and the Indigenous Music Awards. He is one of the dancers for the Ivan Flood Memorial Dancers, and I know that it was his grandmother, I believe,
He's trained in LA, New York, Toronto, Detroit, and Calgary. He continues to work his craft, and I know that he does do workshops. Check Mikey on TikTok and Instagram at Mikey Harris. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mikey Harris.
Hey, what's up, everyone? How you guys doing? Hello. So yeah, my name is Mikey Harris. This is my little brother Jacob Harris and my little sister Sienna Harris. And yes, together we are the Ivan Flepp Memorial Dancers, and we're really excited to be here with you guys today. Just to share a little bit about our story, show you some of our dances, and kind of what we do. Like Joy said, we take traditional jigging moves, we put it with hip hop music, and that's kind of how we created our style over the years. And yeah, like it's been a really great time. Again, we all started dancing at a really young age. So I was 5 years old when I began jigging. Jacob was also 5 years old when he began jigging, and Sienna was also 5. So we all kind of started at a really young age. So we got that going really early on. And kind of the one who got us going was our grandparents. So it was my grandma and my grandpa who got us going. And they used to take me to the Métis Club here in Winnipeg. Every Friday there was like a dance, and I would go and just see all these people jigging, and I just wanted to do that. So she taught me in her living room, and a couple years later I started doing shows by myself, and like I got a nickname from a man here in Winnipeg called Yvon Dumont. He called me Slick. So my little nickname was Mikey Slick Harris. That was my like stage name. Really cool at the time. And then Jacob came along 2 years later. He was like, hey, I want to, do the same thing. He wanted to come to gigs and stuff, and he wanted to learn how to jig. So my grandma and I taught him how to jig when he was 5, and he also got a little nickname. His name was Lil J. So for a couple years, me and Jacob started doing shows together, and our name was Slick and Little J. So the Slick and Little J show. And then 2 years later, Sienna came along. She wanted to also get in the jigging world, so we taught her how to jig. And then she didn't really get a nickname, but she was thrown in the mix. It was the Slick and Little J show featuring Sienna. So that was our whole show. It was a great time. And we did that for a couple years. I think we did it until I was about 12 years old. Because unfortunately, in 2012, our grandfather passed away. So it was like a really hard time because, again, my grandparents, they were the one who started this whole jigging stuff off for us. And when he passed away, he was kind of the person who did all the managing stuff, and he would go on the mic and speak and do all that stuff, and we would just be the dancers backstage. And he was really the one who kind of pushed us to do certain things. He helped us with the choreography and stuff, and he was just the rock of everyone. And when he passed away, he was really, really tough on all of us. So again, we all kind of stopped dancing for a whole year. We wanted to give up. Personally, I was like, okay, so my grandpa passed away. I don't want to dance anymore. And I was like, done. So I'm pretty sure you guys out there can relate to, losing someone in a certain way. And it is a negative thing. So it hit us really hard. Again, we were just young people and we didn't understand, why that had to happen. So we took a break, but we didn't quit. We just took a break. And a year later, we came back and we wanted to rename ourselves the Ivan Flepp Memorial Dancers. So that's why, we are the Ivan Flepp Memorial Dancers. Everything we do in his honor of our grandfather. So that's just a little story behind that. And the main thing we like to get across when I tell that story is, turn something negative that happens, take a break, go through it. You can go through however you want, but turn it into a positive thing at the end. That's kind of what we did with our jigging and stuff. And now, we're out here, and she said, check us out on TikTok. Our TikTok's went crazy recently, and the world really loves the way we take jigging, hip hop music, put them together, and yeah, that's really what we do now. So we're gonna show you a dance real quick. We're gonna do about 2 dances for you. The first dance that we're gonna do is called the AGT routine. The reason why it's called the AGT routine is because this is the dance that we took to America's Got Talent back in 2016. I had this crazy idea to go and audition for America's Got Talent. So I told my parents, and this was 2 weeks before the audition, okay? 2 weeks. And we had no time. I told them, okay, we need to go. The last audition was in Memphis, Tennessee, and they made it happen. We made it happen. We made a routine. We went, auditioned. Unfortunately, didn't make it on the show. But again, it's America's Got Talent, and we're Canadians, so there's all that fun stuff in between that kind of messed with it. But this is called the AGT routine. We're just going to get it up and going, and then we're going to be dancing for you right away, okay? So, yeah, I hope you guys are doing good and staying well out there. And hopefully you guys can see us. We're gonna back up here. We're in our living room, so we're gonna do our best here. Unfortunately, these are how the times go. So here we go. We're gonna hit the America's Got Talent routine for y'all real quick. Here we go. All right. I see those questions. Hey. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Mhm. Hey. Sorry, guys. 1 second. Okay, 1 second, everyone. We are having a technical difficulty. This is just great. Oh. So much love. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So unfortunately, guys, I don't know what's happening with the AGT routine. Not sure what's happening. It's just not going to play right now. We just played it, but it's not playing. But we're going to keep going. We got a show that we're going to show you anyways. The one that I was really excited for you guys to see was called it's called the breakdown routine. So this breakdown, it's like a 4-ish, 5-ish minutes dance. It's literally the Right Over Jig into Big John McNeil into the Orange Blossom Special. So it's all of our favorite dances into one. And the way it goes is the Right Over Jig breaks into Big John, and it goes into Orange Blossom. The Orange Blossom, if anyone knows what the Orange Blossom is, it gets quicker and quicker and quicker each time. So each round it gets faster and faster, and us as the dancers, we gotta try to keep up with it. So it's really something. It's really a good time. So is that Slick? I see. Is that Slick? He was 6 years old dancing at the Ashram Stoppers. Yeah, that's me. Everyone, asking if it's Slick. That was me. Yes, I am the little Mikey Slick Harris that you guys have seen back in the day. So yeah, that's us. Always a big fan of you. Thank you. Okay, guys, so we're going to hit this routine for you, and hope you guys enjoy it. And, yeah, I want to say thank you guys for having us all again. And hope you guys like this routine, okay? It's one of our favorites. It's usually the last routine that we do at all of our shows. So it's the breakdown. All right, here we go. Yeah. Oh, they can see. Here we go.
Thank you,
Hey.
Jacob. Thank you, Sienna. That was awesome.
Thank you.
It was such a great pleasure having you here for our conference to kick it off. And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank
You
you.
know, everybody's been going through such a difficult time, and we all have difficult times. And
Yeah.
in particular, when you're a young person, you experience loss, but you turn that loss into awesome pride for your family and for your community and for all of the people that get to enjoy watching you perform. Gichimiigwech, thank you
so much,
so
everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
And to our viewers out there, I have one more gift card to give away. And that gift card is to Eric Mason. He's also a registered delegate. And I just wanted to say once again, don't forget to tune in tomorrow morning right here at 9:30 a.m. Tina Keeper will be hosting again, and it'll be followed by Wanikorn Miller and a panel on recovery learning. In the lunchtime entertainment, we will also have the wonderful Rhonda Head, followed by the deadly comedian Conway Kootenay. So take care. Have a great afternoon at the workshops. And for the rest of you, thank you so much for tuning in. Gichimiigwech, Ginanaskumithanen. Bye-bye for now.